Hey everyone, welcome to HR Summer School. I'm so glad you're here with us and looking forward to an incredible event as always. So glad to have you here, and along with my friend and co-host George Rogers. Glad to hear, buddy. Welcome.
Man, I am so excited. I always get excited. I'm speechless right now. I've been in the chat the last few minutes. 250 plus people got in early. To all my alumni, HR Summer School people, we are back and we're finally here. Virtual hugs to start off.
Yes.
There we go.
To everybody. Goodness. So glad that everyone's here with us, and it's been fun for me to watch everyone in the chat. So if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, doesn't matter. Welcome. We're glad to have you, and we're looking forward to some fun, frankly. It's going to be, if you're new here, we run a little bit different kind of events. As you can already see in the chat, if you're on LinkedIn, the chat's kind of blowing up. There's a lot of good conversation. People are connecting with each other. They're sharing where they are. So feel free to jump in there. We bribe you, frankly, to do that with lots of prizes and incentives and things as we go through the event to make sure you're all connected and engaged. As we're going through, we'll share. If you're commenting on the speaker sessions, we'll bring those comments into the discussion. So it's really fun. It's really interactive kind of event. And no, you don't have to be on camera. Thank goodness. So we get all the benefits and none of the downsides to some of that. So we're glad that you're here with us. It's going to be an incredible experience. And really quick, I'm going to give you the background on summer school for those of you that are new to the entire experience. I'll tell you where it came from. So it's funny because George is now my co-host and a brother from another mother. Essentially, I love him, appreciate him. And he started out as one of our speakers 2 years ago. So when the world kind of shut down, I'd gotten to Long Beach, California. Flight just landed and I opened my phone up and it said, hey, California shut down. The world is coming to a halt. Everything, just go home. And so as I was traveling home, I was thinking, what am I going to do? I suddenly had 6 weeks open on my calendar that I needed to find something to do. And so I decided to put together summer school for the first time and try to create something, not just to give a bunch of content and information to people, but to bring them some encouragement and some inspiration in the middle of was probably the most difficult time that many of us has faced as HR professionals. And so we put that together the first year and it was such a hit. It was beyond my wildest dreams, how much people appreciated and wanted to participate. And so last year we had sophomore year, and this year, junior year for some of you are brand new, and that's great. So we're here again and I'm so excited. So I've got a couple of announcements and things to kick it off. Then we're going to dive right into our first speaker and hear from Keith Webb. George, I'd love to get just a statement from you, because there was a moment, I said the very first time that you were on summer school, you were actually one of our speakers. You talked about bringing your soul to work, creating a culture of good. You talked about some of your personal story and things. I loved those pieces. And it's funny because since then you've transitioned to, I think the audience may actually love you more than me, because you always have these witty comments. You have these great one-liners and things. And I write all of them down because they're wisdom from George. Is there something specific you're looking forward to most this year?
I think, the whole purpose, I look down because the tradition of who's going to go mute it first. but I think every year that we do this, Ben, it's, we talk about the inspiration that we want to, give everybody. And every year I come into it with making sure that my mindset is prepared. I know we got a lot of great speakers. I had the opportunity to meet some of these great men and women that's going to be sharing in their knowledge and everything. And I think the biggest thing, especially when you start schools, that first day, you get into the middle of the school year and then you're finishing off, everything triggers around the mindset, right? Everything begins and ends with how your mind mentally is prepared. And so my mindset, like I've been preparing for this for the last few weeks, and it's been getting closer and closer. And now that we're here, I want to challenge everybody. It's about to be a Ben one-liner here to take care of, but really, I want to challenge everybody as we about to kick off this first session is just make sure your mind is prepared to be inspired, to be educated, and to really grow during this week. One thing that I do know, here's the one-liner, Ben, a bad mindset is like a flat tire. Right, you're not going to go anywhere fast. You're not going to be able to go anywhere or gain anything. So I want to challenge everybody. If you have a bad mindset, you're in a rut, let's take that off. Let's renew our minds right now, this moment, and be ready to be enlightened so that we can get the flat tire if you're in a rut and going slow. You can get fresh tires so you can get to rolling. Let these next 3 days be something that empowers you to do more. That's exactly what I love. I love the empowerment and the inspiration I gain from being around my former and fellow students.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. I'm envisioning, I'm trying to figure out what metaphor I can use to get my tire iron out and start changing the tire, but essentially change the tire. Let's get moving. So I'll get moving with some of these announcements really quickly, because I know that all of you are here to hear from our amazing speakers, just like I am. I have the benefit of getting these sessions done with them, but I get the double benefit of getting to hear it all over again. And it's like watching an old favorite movie, and you catch like a new scene or a new comment or something. You're like, oh, I missed that the first time. So I get to do that alongside all of you as you hear it for the first time. So a couple quick things for us really quickly. Number one, I mentioned this already, but we do a ton of giveaways. So I've got some fun giveaways, right? I've got a book here, HR, the quirky offspring of a lawyer and psychologist. I've got an HR coffee repeat notebook, some notebooks and things like that to send out, as well as this really incredible book that I've been enjoying, Anxiety at Work. I've got a box back there behind the desk with like 100 copies in it. We're gonna be sending out to people. This book is all about strategies to help build resilience, help your teams to create a more cohesive foundation so they can actually perform and excel at work. So there's some really great stuff. We'll have some summer school shirts. We'll have other things to be sharing out there, as well as some amazing things from the sponsors as well that they've kicked in to make this fun for all of you. So the way we pick who gets those, by the way, we look for people who are engaged, who are chatting, who are connecting, who are sharing their learnings. At the end of every day last year, Kenny Dang, Peter Searcy, Mildred, a couple of the other people were sharing their daily recaps. They're just students just like you, and they're sharing the daily recaps on their LinkedIn profile saying, these are the things that I took away from the day that I'm going to go and make happen. So share those kinds of things. We look for that stuff. Tag me in it, tag summer school, HR summer school in it. And so I'll make sure I see them, and we'll make sure, and you will very likely win something. We've got a lot of stuff to give away. We always get the question on the SHRM credits, HRCI credits. We are approved for both of those. 7.5 hours over the next 3.5 days. Sorry, 7.5 hours over the next 3 days. I was extending that for some reason in my mind. And so we'll get all that information out after the event is over with. They won't let us share that stuff before the event's done. So we'll talk about those things on the very last day, as well as if you need the captions, we have those built into LinkedIn. So just hit the little button there on the video. You can see the captions there. We used to put those into the videos, and now we use that space at the bottom actually to feature your comments during the conversations. So and we try to make you all a part of this experience. A quick thank you to the people who make this possible, the sponsors. And if you see George up full screen again, you can see that on his screen behind him. He's got this slide up there. But UKG, we're going to hear from Keith Webb in a few minutes. And I love his session because he talks about the opportunity we have in front of us right now, and it really taps into that hopeful nature of what summer school is all about. We have some great speakers from Phenom talking about how to look at and tap into your internal talent and how to leverage the people you already have instead of stepping over them to hire someone from outside. What if we looked for those people inside the business and look for ways to really leverage and build them up? The team at PeopleStrategy, we have Beth actually recorded a session with George. It's going to be incredible. Can't wait to hear that one. Wanido, we talk about understanding your CEO and how to talk to them better, how to speak their language. The team over at Goody is giving away some really fun stuff. They're going to give away, I think, like 20, 30 different prizes here for the events. They're giving away a lot of good stuff. And I interviewed one of their customers talking about recognition as a piece of the employee experience and how we can use that to create better experiences for our people at work. And last but not least, Plum. I interviewed their CEO, Caitlin McGregor, on here about how to look for the potential in your people and to help them thrive. So there's so many good things. And thank you to every one of those sponsors for helping to make this event possible for all of you. I appreciate them for what they've done and what they're continuing to do to serve the community. It's going to be a blast. All right, last slide here, and then we'll jump into some good stuff. So just a quick thing. If you didn't see the agenda already, it's up on the HR Summer School website, so you can go check that out. But here's what you can expect today. First up, we're going to hear from Keith Webb, talk about the path forward for HR. What is ahead of us? Yes, we have plenty of things behind us. We're going to look at what's ahead of us and really dive into those things. We have a session with Shalu about change and how to create human-focused change. We all read the textbooks and everything else about change management and all those things. The way she talks about it, I wish I could bottle that up, because the energy and the passion with which she talks about how we should be designing change around our people and making them the center of it, not an afterthought, is so powerful. We'll hear from Al, as she likes to be called. I call her doctor to give her the kudos and the credit she deserves, but we're going to hear about psychological safety and resilience. And Hannah is going to join her. So we're going to hear from a duo there. And then our last one before the break today, before we do some giveaways and fun stuff like that, we're going to hear from Dan Griffith on mediation. And he's a world-class mediator. So we're going to hear about those things we should be leveraging in our daily work. And I'll go ahead and give you the insight here that you can probably leverage those things in your daily life as well, those interactions and relationships and things. So there's so much good stuff. And this is just the first half of today. So stay tuned. It's going to be a blast. We'll take a break there to give away our very first, I guess, George, maybe it's our second Unity Award, since last year was the first Unity Award. We'll give away our first annual Unity Award. How about that? And some other things during that break. So it's going to be a blast. All right, George, any final comments before we jump over into Keith's session?
Let's go. I'm excited about this one. So I'm ready to get in.
Ben, get out of the way. Okay, understood.
Future.
All right, here we go, everybody. Let's hear from Keith Webb on the opportunity and the path ahead for HR. Here we go. Everyone, I am thrilled that you're here with us at HR Summer School again. It's going to be an incredible week. We're going to hear from some amazing speakers, and we're going to start off with somebody who I love and respect and appreciate. What other words can I throw at you, Keith, while you're here? Goodness gracious. I'm so glad to have Keith Webb here with us from UKG. He was here 2 years ago, if you remember, and very early in the pandemic, early days, and I look to him for advice and recommendations on what we can do as leaders in the moment, in the heat of the moment, to help our people and serve them well. And I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to bring him back and to talk with us about some of the things that have changed, some of the things that you probably need to know to be successful going on, and as you're supporting your people and, again, serving the business day to day. So, Keith, I'm really excited to have you back. Welcome.
Ben, I can't thank you enough for allowing us to participate again. It's been an incredible couple of years. There's so much to talk about. Our conversations always leave me taking notes of things that I can take back to the folks that I get to spend with. And it's just a real good opportunity for us at UKG to be able to share the things that we get to see out on the front lines as we're out there talking to people that are trying to recover from things that have happened in their lives and to become the best possible places to work where they can imagine. And so thank you again on behalf of everybody at UKG for allowing us to participate. We appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. So you kind of keyed in on that a little bit. I want to dive into those fun things. Before we get to the fun stuff, would you take just a second and tell the audience a little more about who you are and what you do? Because some of them may remember Keith, but some of them have never had the chance to the pleasure of meeting you before. So I'll tell you all, by the way, Keith is one of my favorite people. He's funny, he's sharp, he's got good advice and good wisdom. So I'm going to put you on a pedestal really high so that you have there you go. All the pressure's on you, my friend. Go for it.
I will do my best never to let you down, Mr. Eubank. So my name is Keith Webb. I'm the director of SaaS technology for the Global Enterprise Division at a company called UKG, a company that just right before the pandemic set in decided to merge two amazing companies, Ultimate Software and the Kronos Group. And we've come together to bring together the world's first, most incredibly united platform for employee lifecycle activities, soup to nuts. It's an amazing company. The cultures work together and align so well. And so we've been spending the last 2 years making sure that our systems meet up to the 1 + 1 = 3 principle, which is why we began that journey in the first place. My specific responsibility is I have a couple of teams that I work for, and I lead them to go into sales opportunities for companies that are evaluating their technology in the HCM space. And one of the teams manages the current state versus the future state and envisioning what that looks like for a company who maybe has some older antiquated technologies that they need to move past. And so they work through, what's the best path to success for them. And we walk through those activity streams. And then the other side of the equation is the technology itself. What are the securities and the configuration capabilities, really the state of the industry from a SaaS perspective, and the way to pick a good company that has a future-proof technology platform to make sure that the investments they make now will last with them for a lifetime of a relationship with the company. And that's really the utopia in making a partnership decision with any vendor, whether it's financials or HCM or any other solution that you might have. The best thing that I would say is to pick a partner, a technology, and a platform that prevents you from ever having to go through that again, because it is, it costs money and it's disruptive, and you have two jobs at the same time. And the easier and better, higher quality we can get you from one place to the next, that's what my team is there to talk about and make sure that we're a good fit.
Excellent. Wonderful. It's not just costly, but it's emotionally costly on people, right? That's a tough transition to make. And before you came over to the UKG team, you worked as an IT executive, right? So you've been through a lot of projects and everything else. You've seen all those kind of things. And so you're, in some days, you're probably thankful that you're not hands-on on that side anymore. And so
that's exactly right. Yeah. So I was VP of IT for Rooster Chris Steakhouse, who needed to really reimagine the entire employee life cycle, everything from recruiting top talent, keeping people engaged, looking at the metrics that drove the organization to profitability. We came in with the goal there, and I think every leader in HCM should have the utopian goal of tethering every decision that's made in the life cycle to a specifically intended outcome. And that outcome would typically align with the C-level objectives for the organization to make the company better, stronger, more profitable, whatever the goals are for the company. But every hiring decision, every promotion, every transfer, there should be a specific intended use case of what the expectation would look like, and then a follow-up capability to measure, was that a successful move in our organization?
That's actually a really great lead into my first question, strangely enough. I wanted to ask you about what leaders are focusing on right now. And the way I heard you say that and translate in my head is, when I'm talking to HR and talent leaders, like all of you that are here with us today, one of the things that I advise you is, if you're going to talk to your head of IT, you're going to talk to your CEO, you need to go to them and speak in their language, talk about the things they care about and words they care about. And so, for example, your CEO cares about competitiveness in the market. They care about business stability, things like that. And so if you're going to go and talk to those leaders, they care about those things right now. And what I wanted to ask you, Keith, is all of these leaders right now that are listening in with us, they are in these organizations that have had this they've been stretched, they've been pulled, they've been pressed and stressed and all these kinds of things. We could pick all the words we want to, but it's just been a really trying and challenging time. And I would love to open it up to you. You have had the opportunity to see a lot of amazing organizations that have probably gone through a lot of transformations. And I'd love to hear from you. What are the characteristics in an organization that lead it to be more likely to spring back when it's bent, it's pushed back? It's what leads it to be more likely to be able to spring back and respond in an agile kind of way. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if we go back just a couple of years, if we think about the heroes of the pandemic, it's really HR and IT. From the get-go, it really started with, with anything that happens, whether it's a worldwide pandemic or if it's just a localized, we have a tornado happen here in Texas and things happen. The first thing we do is recover or react. We have to react. We have to do what we need to do to contain what's happening, contain the exposure. And this is a great story, just a quick one here. I have a good friend and a colleague whose house was struck by lightning about 5 years ago. And so I walked him through, so what's the reaction to that? And he said, my first reaction was to protect my children, to find out where they were and get them out of the house. And so I thought, well, that actually translates to big picture. That's what we do, is we start off, and part of our reaction is to protect our people. And when we do that effectively, then we have the ability and the freedom to move on to the things that are necessary for next. So we need to assess the damage, find out what collateral damage could be happening there, curb the chaos, slow down the spread of the things that are happening to us that we didn't intend to have happen, and then stabilize. And as we stabilize after that period of uncertainty, then we need to immediately start to begin thinking about recovering. And that's what those organizations that I'll tell you about did right away, was they had a mind while they were reacting to moving on to the next phase, which is certainly recovering. And that would be modifying things, changing the way we do business. In the pandemic, it was IT, immediately learning how to quickly provision employees to successfully work from home when they perhaps hadn't done so before. Luckily, there was a pretty good model for that. I think the many of the workforce participants were able to work from home leading up to it. But certainly it was a cataclysmic change when we moved people to work completely remote. I was talking to an APA council about 3 months ago, about 35 executives that ran payroll for large organizations. To a person, they had a story about the moment they got the notice, 4 hours to pick up everything and be able to process payroll, because we can't stop paying people. That's a critical success measure of a company. And they were tasked with doing that. And so IT were able to do that, and HR payroll were able to get them set up for success and be able to do that. And so we do those things. We look at the environment and change the environment to the extent that we need to do so. We change the processes, the workflows might change, the way we route activities and those types of things. And sometimes we had to change the product. Some of my restaurant friends had to go from 90% dine-in business to 10% carry out to 100% carry out overnight to be successful. And they even had to go, I was talking to some chefs about a year into it, and they were talking about how they had to reevaluate the products that would travel for 20 minutes in the styrofoam container because the steam would ruin the hamburger bun or make the fries soggy. So they'd actually make whole-scale changes to their products. And so a lot of companies had to do that in the recovery phase as well. But during recovery, the successful companies that I visited with and talked to, they've immediately begun to think about, how do we thrive? And there's so many stories out there, Ben, about how do we thrive even in the midst of chaos. And so there's stories. There's a company called Rafi Nova, led by a woman named Marissa, an incredible woman who was developing designer backpacks based in the United States. 29 employees in Vietnam, had everything set up for these absolutely gorgeous backpacks. But you can imagine, once travel got shut down, backpacks, nobody was buying those. Within a week's time, she was able to reinvent her product line to designer masks, which were something that were going to be popular. Now she'll get back to what she was doing before, but a great story there. There's a movie theater down in San Antonio, I believe it is, Evo, and they couldn't have large auditorium seating inside, so they bought a giant screen for the outside and turned it into a drive-in theater with an outdoor concession stand that worked for them to stay in some semblance of business. A final one, the airlines, the Kenyan Airlines immediately said, we're not going to be moving bodies from point A to point B, but cargo needs to move and the supply chain is probably going to be disrupted. We saw that. And they were quick to refactor their airplanes to carry more cargo and less passengers. And those are the reactions that we're looking for the companies that move to the thrive stage. And that's the fun thing to talk about today, is those great stories. And it all was about the leadership and the thoughtful presence that they had to think things through.
I love that at the macro level you're talking about this, because I've been talking about this at a micro level for a little while. When danger is present, our brain wants to fight or flight, right? Can I hit this thing hard enough or run away fast enough to survive this encounter, is essentially what your brain defaults back to. But once that's passed, it's all system safe. One of the interesting things in neuroscience is that our brains are hardwired to be looking for danger. They're still looking for it. Even if it's not there, they're still looking for it. They're worried about it. They're concerned with it. And so a little bit of your creativity, a little bit of your focus, a little bit of your effort is held back by your brain, because there may be a tiger behind that tree over there, and it's just worried about that possibly happening. And what's really fascinating is the neuroscience data tell us that when we work for an organization that makes us feel seen and heard and valued and appreciated, we can take that little bit that we're holding in reserve and put that fully into our work. And people talk about bringing your best self to work all the time. It's become this thing we just kind of throw around. There's actual science behind that says when you unlock that, people can be their best self at work. And I love the stories you're telling, because we're showing our people, we are still committed to you. In the middle of all this stuff going on, we are still committed to finding a way to keep you working, keep you gainfully employed, keep your families provided for. I love those stories, because that's talking through that, I'm thinking about what it would be like to work for a company like that in the middle of all the things going on. It would be so much easier to say, hey, we're going to hang it up for a little while. We'll get back to you. And to hear about them prioritizing and looking for new ways to keep moving forward and keep thriving, to use your word, I think that's really powerful.
It comes back to empathy a little bit. And I love that you tethered the science to the outcomes that can occur. There's a company called the Center for Generational Kinetics. It's led by a young man named Jason Dorsey, and they do a lot of studies and presentations around the different generations in the workplace. And some of the findings that we're seeing there are interesting but predictable. What I believe is the midline managers are the keys to success through any of this chaos. You know, the way that we lead, the way that we react, the way we behave. Yes, there's going to be some changes, but we're going to survive this. And I was reading through one of the studies last week, and it was talking about the difference between the way the Generation X and millennials were perceiving the downturn in the economy and the chaos that was happening from the pandemic and everything. And there's some pretty good gaps in their attitudes and beliefs and their confidence in what was happening from it. And I think a lot of that comes back to, you know, Gen X, we've seen the thunderbolts. We call them thunderbolts. It's fun, that story that I tell you about my friend, his house was struck by lightning. But once a thunderbolt happens, you know, it's that loud shock, and suddenly that adrenaline kicks in, and the fur on the back of your neck kicks in, and that neuroscience says, how do I protect myself from that danger? But those thunderbolts, we've had those happen before. You know, you and I spoke a month or so ago about the thunderbolts that have happened. Certainly in my life, I remember Y2K being the end all be all to computer. I mean, it was going to be the end of days for us because of two missing digits in the year as we crossed over, and that didn't come to pass. And then, of course, we had, you know, 9/11, and that was a bad time for us. And then we had a bad economy in 2007, 2008, and we've had hurricanes. You know, we had Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and so big disasters and little disasters. But one thing that we've learned from it, particularly having been through these, is we learned that the human condition tells us that through times of adversity, we can grow. And so coming out of this, what I'm seeing is that the company said, you know, we did figure out that we can leave our offices and still pay people. We have some agility. We can change our products and still sell food in our restaurants. We can change our supply chain and ship goods instead of people and be very successful. Well, now we can take that agility, Ben, and we can apply that and build it into the DNA of our organizations so that our confidence in being able to handle the next thunderbolt is materially higher, and the effects of that thunderbolt are materially less on our organizations. That's my belief.
Can I challenge you a little bit on
I
that?
hope you will.
So I think agility is really important. I truly believe it is, but everybody throws it around like it's this buzzword. And you've given us some really concrete examples of that, again, at a company level, at an innovation level. Here's how we're responding to what's happening. Anything you might share with our audience of HR leaders here about thinking about agility from their perspective, or how do we do this in a way that influences how we support our people, or how do we weave this agility thing into those pieces of it? Because I believe you, I'm with you, but I'd love to challenge you to take it a little bit further for them into, okay, if I'm looking for it, here's what it looks like, or I should keep this in mind as an example of somebody else that's already done that well, because we can map that out. Even if we're in a different industry, we can still map that same people process over. Any suggestions there?
Yeah, a couple things. So when we speak about agility, it's really in processes and the way we get work done.
Yes.
The examples that we've talked about, in every organization, we have to claim what we did well, and then also claim the things that we could have done better. But the one thing has to be a constant in this, Ben, is that the character of the organization has to remain intact. There's no room for agility and character. And I'm talking about things like having our midline managers well-versed in avoiding things like micromanagement. I talked to you about micromanagement being the crime against efficiency before. And that study I was telling you about did indicate that remote work has had a material impact on employees and their belief that they're being micromanaged, 10 percentage points down from what it was 2 years ago. So some great outcomes of becoming remote workers. But again, it's what's imbued in the culture of the company that really has to remain intact. Over time, it's the processes where we need to have agility. And again, we need to claim what we did well. And that way we can be prepared for the next thing, the next thunderbolt, so that we can say, here's what worked well last time. We now know how to let people work remotely, or we know how to change our product line. We can imbue that into the thought process and tether that to somebody called a change agent. And this is my last point that I'll make on that before you ask me another question. I firmly believe that every organization should have somebody appointed to be an agent of change, somebody who is specifically watching the landscape of the thing happening in the world, in the country, in their company, in their own industry, and in their own organization, and watching continuously and evaluating the things where there's an opportunity for either risk aversion. We can avoid risk in the future, or to capitalize on things that maybe we invested in, but we haven't got the full investment out of yet. And if we do that, that's where the efficiencies can come in. And again, that confidence that we have the ability to survive and thrive, even in times of adversity, can escalate materially.
Oh, it's gracious. I wrote it down because I thought that was so powerful. You said there's no room for agility of character. I think that's a great line there, and a great reminder for all of us that I listened to a psychologist recently, kind of following his stuff. He's got some really neat ways of looking at the world. And one of the words he uses is tether. You slipped that in there a minute ago, but he talks about being tethered to something, being connected and feeling that how strong or how weak that tie is. And we have to have these tethers to the values that underpin all of our decisions. We have to feel and build strong connections there. And the agility things have to come around that, right? Mm-hmm. They can't be in place of that. They can't be about, we're going to change what's important to us this month, and next month we may come back, we may not. No one can operate with any sort of certainty in that kind of environment. So having that as a stable foundation on which I know we believe in integrity, and if I'm going to tell this customer that this is the truth about what's happening, and we'll make it right for them, right? I know that my boss is going to back me, and their boss is going to back them, and all the way up, because that's what we hold dear as a value. So I think that's so powerful there. I want to ask you like 15 other questions, but I know that we're kind of getting close on our time. If someone wants to connect or follow UKG, learn more about what the company is doing, you mentioned some really cool stuff in here. I know the team, the UKG Workforce Institute, does some amazing research too. So there's all kinds of good stuff out there. What's the best way for them to connect or learn more?
Well, so you can connect with me personally, and I'll get you as much information. I literally love, I eat, breathe, and live the employee life cycle and the ebbs and flows. But I believe every company should reach their fullest potential in terms of taking care of their employees. So I'm on LinkedIn, of course, KWWWEBB on LinkedIn. So I'm easy to reach. We have a great marketing team. Katie Moreno is a great resource for us to reach out to as well. So coming to our website, at ukg.com is a pretty quick path to get a hold of us as well. And then watch for activities and events that our company sponsors. We have thought leadership series, we have APA events, congresses. There's a lot of activities to get reconnected where you don't have to be a customer of ours, because our belief is that the more we spread the knowledge and the wisdom that we have, the better our world's going to be. And that's really our philosophy. And it comes down to, our purpose as people isn't just a tagline, it's the truth of the way the organization works. And if everybody had something like that was their core, their belief that they're tethered to, then I think we'd be so much better off in humanity. So look for those ways, those paths to connect with us, and we'll be more than happy to help out.
Wonderful. Keith, you're a treasure, my friend. I really appreciate you for joining me, for sharing some expertise. I love the stories, and I think it really helps the rest of us listening in here. It's easy to get focused, heads down, just doing the stuff we got to do every day. And I love that you pulled us back a little bit to help us see the bigger picture. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. To everybody else out there, I hope you enjoyed this kickoff for the event. Stay tuned for more great HR Summer School coming right up. Right. Goodness. I got some good notes out of that. Again, hearing it for the second time around. I love it because I did not plan this intentionally, but some of the comments and things I'm seeing here from people talking about the importance of this as part of the change process and thinking about agility and HR being change makers. I think that's going to segue really well into this next conversation on leading change and human-centered change and all those kind of things. Any takeaways for you, George, on that one? Any good? You have some good one-liners too. He may be, competing with you a little bit, dueling one-liners.
No, that Keith was incredible in everything that he shared. There are some things that really stuck out with me. He talked about, the opportunities and thriving during those transitions. And then we, over the last couple of years, since, COVID and everything, the pandemic and everything that we faced over the last couple of years, the word change has always been a part of HR Summer School. It seems like there's always something about change. And when he talked about thriving during that transition, it reminded me that, I, as a person, we as people, often when we think about, change and how do we thrive through that change, we feel like our goal is going to be destroyed and we lose our goal. When in fact, the goal is the goal. The only thing that changes as we're thriving through that transition is the plan. We adapt the plan to get to the goal because of the circumstances that we may be dealt with. And so that was very important. And then obviously as a person, speaking people's language, and I think you actually said it, speaking the language of our team members. And part of that is listening, right? He talked about that. I saw the quote pop up about making sure we're listening to our people. At the end of the day, they're voicing it. And sometimes it's not verbally listening to them. Sometimes we have to listen to how they act, if that makes sense, by their actions. And learning their love language, learning their language that they need to be communicated to. Some people are not verbal. Some people may respond better email. So yes, that was The Path Forward by Keith Webb. That was great. UKG, that's incredible. I'm ready for part 2. I'm ready for the next class. I'm ready to ring the bell and get going.
All right. Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. My regret for everybody out there, I'll peek behind the curtain. My regret, I tell George every time, is I don't build in more time for us to have a little bit more discussion about some of the big takeaways we got, because we're learning alongside all of you. And I can see from the comments, everyone else is get some great things already. So we're going to dive in and hear from Shalu. She's a change agent. She's an incredible leader in that space. And again, just a few minutes and you'll start to hear perspectives on that. This isn't about some static model of change or anything academic. It's very heartfelt and personal from her, and you'll hear her story. So let's dive into that and hear from Shalu on some change. Here we go. And welcome to another session here at HR Summer School. I know that we've heard from great leaders on things like recruiting and comp and all the other things, but one of the biggest and frankly hardest things that we have to deal with as HR leaders is change. Right? Helping to change behaviors, helping people to adjust and modify and respond to and adapt to the changes that are happening at work. And so I have here my experts on all things change leadership and change management, the person who I go to as a resource for this. Shalu, I'm so glad that you're here with us. I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
Thank you, Ben, for having me. It's always a privilege to get a chance to interact with so many more people. And I am really grateful for you inviting me here and giving me a chance to talk with more people.
Absolutely, for sure. So before we get into some of the fun stuff, would you give the audience just a little bit, besides change expert, gives people a little bit of insight into who you are and what you do, please?
Sure. I love change, as Ben just called out. I do believe that there is power in people. And when people connect with process, technology, and data together, there is power in the results they can create. So that's really what I do in my professional life. My job is to make things better. My job is to challenge status quo in the service of people. And my job is to continuously find ways to care for our biggest asset, people in our organization. So that's what I do. As a person, I am a mom, and I struggle a lot in that front. I think I give myself the worst score as a mother or a daughter or a wife. So not a great benchmark or an example to go there.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you that all of the moms that I know that are balancing all the other things that they have to do in life, they're their harshest critics, and the people around you are saying, wow, I wish I could keep it together as well as that person does. And the person in the middle of it is thinking, oh my gosh, like they've got it together. We're always looking at someone else. So my own wife is not excluded from that. So I'll give you just that bit of encouragement that we always feel like we're a little farther behind than everybody else is, and they're looking at us thinking the exact same thing. So no worries there.
Thanks, Ben.
Well, you have this really incredible way of looking at the world. And so I'd love for you just to kick us off for this conversation and give me some insights into what you think great change leadership looks like.
Okay, that's
Go broad. We could spend 30 minutes just on that, but
yeah. Okay, 3 things a change leader will always keep in mind. First is inclusion. And inclusion, not just by saying, I'm going to invite diverse ideas and thoughts, or I will invite people from diverse backgrounds and experiences. Inclusion to me means giving a permission to be themselves and share their perspective and influence the end. So to me, a change leader is very intentionally inclusive, not just diverse. So that's number one. The second thing a change leader does very actively is to never assume that they know it all. So they start with the premise of saying, I don't know nothing. So where do I go from here? Because I do want to solve for something and make things better for people. And when a change leader starts from that stand, some of us would call it humility. I would call it the ability to accept the ignorance of self and then dive into the collective wisdom of people around you. So that's the second thing I think change leaders do very well. Giving people the comfort to say, you're not talking to a know-it-all, you're talking to somebody who is just coming with an intent and curiosity to know more from you and use that to make things better. The third thing change leaders do very well is they are fearless. They are fearless in accepting their mistakes. They are fearless in accepting that there will be tough choices to make. And they are fearless in putting those options out and saying, folks, that there's not going to be an easy option and it is okay to be afraid of making that choice, but let's do it together. And because they do the inclusion and the curiosity with humility so well, when they are fearless, they really converge the energy of being vulnerable to be something more constructive and help hence the community to be more. So 3 things, Ben, I think change leaders do very well.
I think it's interesting listening to that mix of different things, right? Because some of the range of items you just said there, I'm thinking about that recipe, if you will. That recipe for a great leader amplifies the value, amplifies the opportunities, amplifies, right, the response from people and their ability to do their best, to be their best, as you were saying.
Yep.
I love that idea of saying it's not just about yes, come in and you're welcome, but I don't expect you to say anything. No, it's not only do I expect you to be here, but I'm going to go ahead and start by saying I don't know all the things and I need all of you. All of us are smarter than any of us individually.
Correct.
So let's
Correct.
jump in together. Oh,
yes,
that's incredible.
absolutely.
That's wonderful. Well, one of the things that you told me in a previous conversation is that human-centered innovation is a priority for you, for your team, and for how you advise other employers to approach the problem of change. And so I'd love to hear from you, how does human-centered innovation differ from what most companies start out with when they're saying, we need to innovate, let's be creative, let's come up with new solutions. How is human-centered innovation a little different from that common approach?
And this is a question that personally I'm still figuring out. And I get better and wiser every year with the mistakes I make, with the people I work with some results I generate, and sometimes I struggle with. But in my mind, how I differentiate the two. Straight off the bat, I will say practicing human-centered innovation is a guarantee for more sustainable and practical solutions to make things better. Having said that, people do confuse human-centered with just asking a few people once and saying, do you need this? And somebody says, yes, we need this. And oh, wow, I was human-centered, I asked you, right? Any other sort of innovation. And let's take the example of the pandemic. We've been literally ravaged as a civilization going through last 2.5 years, trying to figure out meaning of life and meaning of what we do and how we work in this world. And most of the people, and I've seen memes around, the biggest accelerant to digital transformation has been COVID, and it's forcing people to adopt technology well. And I think that's awesome, right? We are on a journey of saying, how do you scale and complement human capacity and capability by using technology? And that's awesome, and that works well, and I love it. But when you're not human-centered and you just throw technology at a situation because you think technology will solve it for you, I think that's the biggest mistake you make. So if I could give one big contrast between human-centered innovation and any other type of innovation people can talk of, because in my mind, there is no other type, but yes, there are contrasting views that we can always come up with. Fundamentally, that is our difference. How we look at a scenario, how we holistically understand what the scenario is doing to the people at the center of that situation, and what are the delighters, the frustrators, and the aspirations of those people. If we get that, if we truly understand the emotions underlying the experiences people expect, and if we can get that, and then we leverage technology, we leverage data, we leverage people, we leverage process, to come together and solve for that need, I think that's the most sustainable way of innovation. Otherwise, what's the purpose of any innovation in this world? Right from the early man days, what is innovation and what is invention? It is all about making our lives better than what they were yesterday. And if that is the intention, then being human-centered is the only option to make things better. And to me, I would always choose that and not worry so much about, is there any other way to make things better? And I will say, choose people, because as much as advancement technology makes, as much as power of, as they call it, the 3Ds nowadays, design, data, and digital, it's all about keeping the person at the center and saying, will this person use whatever is the output that I'm trying to generate? And if the answer is no, it will not, then probably it's not worth even spending dollars on it. So that's the short answer of what I think. That's how I differentiate between two ways or more than one way.
All right, I'm going to take a second and talk to all of you out there listening to this. Okay, so you heard what Shalu just said. I want you to hear that. She used two words we don't use very often. We're talking about designing a new process or supporting our people. We talk about the aspirations and the delighters. You used that term, right? Did I hear you said? Okay, right. We don't think about those two things when we're designing a process. It's what's going to make it easier for us, or somebody asked for this thing or whatever else. Those two things, those two factors, I think there's a third one, but there need to be a couple of those factors when we're deciding what we're going to do next as decision points. And guess what? You don't know all those answers. You have to get them from the people. If you're not asking them, and not just once, like a quick pass by, but you've got to use them as a continuous feedback loop, that changes the opportunity, that changes the ability, that amplifies your impact on the organization in any change. We've always got this group of people who are like dragging along. Like, no, come on, we want you to go with us. If you stop to ask them those things in advance and you find out what's going to delight them, what their aspirations are, what their hopes might be, suddenly you can speak to those things as you're making these changes. And those people who last time we had to just drag them along, suddenly they're like, hey, they're pulling everybody else along, saying, hey, let's go, let's do this, let's make this happen. So I love that piece. Can I come back to one of the other words you used earlier? You talked about being fearless. One of the things that I have come to realize in my own career is that people aren't usually afraid of change itself. They're afraid of all the ambiguity, right? All the things that they just don't know. That's the thing that's really scary. I love that you're talking through this lens of being very person-centered, because if we stop and put ourselves in that situation, how does it feel to not know what this outcome is? Because we usually are the ones planning it. We have an idea what that vision is, but if we don't cast a very clear vision for the rest of our people, then they're going to spend their time worrying, not about the change itself, but what it means for them, what it means for their job, what it means for the company in the future, and stability and all those other things. So I just wanted to touch on that one too, because I think that the coming in and focusing on how those things tie together is so powerful. All right, so I've got one more question I want to ask you. I want to ask you 14 more, by the way. I want to just keep on quizzing you all day. But one more that I want to ask you is, you mentioned a few minutes ago that throughout the course of your career, you may have made a misstep here or there, and that's a lesson learned. I wanted to give you an opportunity to flash back with us for a bit and say, okay, I can go back and I could tell my younger self, here's some advice, here's a recommendation, here's a little bit of wisdom from the trenches over the years. What advice would you give your younger self? Because I'm hoping all of you out there listening right now will take note of this, because whatever she shares is going to be golden. So what advice would you give your younger self if you could go back?
All right. I can give a lot of advice to myself. If I were to choose the three which are really defining for me personally, and I would have reaped huge benefits if I learned those lessons early on in my career and in my life. The first one is invest in relationship. Know people. Tasks get done, but when you focus on who is doing that and what help they might need to be successful, then it is much more than just getting something done. And I started my career being extremely task oriented, just being that force of nature to just push, let's get things done and let's get it all out. And, we committed 10th, let's do it on 8th. And I had a great run. I enjoyed it because I just loved calling myself a self-confessed workaholic. I loved the fun of being busy and solving new problems and just being with lots of people and doing lots of crazy things. But I really feel, had somebody advised me that, Shalu, invest in people much more than you invest yourself in just tasks and getting work done, you will reap much more benefits, because there are times when things go wrong. And it's these investments in people and in relationships that will help you dust yourself and stand up. And I learned it the hard way, but I really, really believe now, every time my mind kicks into, when I'm in a stress mode of the pressure to get stuff done, I kick back into the core habit of being task oriented and really getting into the rhythm and the grind of, managing everything, cut. I nowadays pull myself back and say, no, just step back and find out what's not working and what relationships can you bank on to get this thing going without you getting into the crazy, how should I say, the Excel tracker mode that most of us in HR love to chase everybody's tails on, right? So that's one thing, invest in relationship much more than just focusing on getting work done. The second thing I have learned is it is okay to slow down. There is no race. You don't have to win any race when you're doing your job or living your life. There are things that are important in your life, and they are not going to be achieved because you'll win some race. So it's okay to pause. It's okay to step away. It's okay to give yourself permission to take a break. And I think a lot of us, and I still do it, and I'm struggling in this space, but one of the primary reason, and COVID brought it back again in the forefront, is why the rate of burnout of professionals going up, especially those people who are so passionate about making change and let's do it differently. And it's so exciting. And I love to solve puzzles. I think those people are burnt out more because they just keep pushing and they are just on the treadmill, and nobody tells them it's okay to take a break. It's okay to take some leaves. It's okay to spend time with yourself. And it's okay to pause and just listen to the silence. There is power there. And you might know more if you just let your mind settle, right? So that's the second advice that I would give myself. And the third advice I'll give myself is, don't take yourself too seriously. It is the primary cause of all stresses in our life, because we just take ourselves so seriously. It's almost like, and I still do it, and I keep telling myself to stop doing it. So I've gotten better over a period of time. But it's almost like maybe your boss does your performance appraisal once in a year, but you constantly have this thing sitting in your head or on your shoulder, whatever you want to call it, but keeps going, Shalu, maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you're not doing it right. Maybe you should do this a little better. Maybe you could have done this better. And while that thing keeps telling you also to keep going on and never give up, and okay, awesome, you did this well. But I think we all have to learn to not take ourselves so seriously that when we make a mistake, we make it like a personal failure. I think we need to practice kindness to ourselves first. As they say, charity begins at home. You just can't be kind to other people if you're not kind to yourself. And that's my third lesson that I have learned. Very tough. I struggle on all three. I try to remind them to myself many times in the day, but I just wish somebody made me aware when I started at 21, straight out of college to start working. And I studied along with working through this last 22 years that I've been working. But these three things are my golden mantras. If I could learn them earlier, or somebody could have just mentored me to think about them from their vantage point, probably I could have avoided certain things that I learned the hard way. So that's me, Ben.
Thank you for that authenticity, by the way. Like, this is stuff that I struggled with, I challenged with, and I appreciate you being open with all of us and sharing those. I think those are excellent, by the way. Those are tremendous resources for anybody else out there. I don't care if you're 2 years or 20 years into your career, you can still pause. I took notes on those, by the way. I wrote them all down. You can use those as your guiding light for how to run the next year, the next decade of your career in addition. So wonderful. If someone wants to connect with you or follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
when it's LinkedIn. I like using LinkedIn much more than any other social media site. So yeah, LinkedIn is the place to connect with me.
Perfect. I'll make sure and tag you over here in the comments for everybody. Go reach over there right now, click on Shalu's name, connect over with her, because you have, after hearing this, I'm sure you love her and appreciate her as much as I do, because she is incredible. Shalu, I'm going to close with one quick comment really quickly, because you talked about the investing in relationships piece. I had a chance last year to interview a friend who just retired. He'd been in HR for 37, 38 years, something like that. And I asked him about, looking back, what is the legacy that you think you left? And he said, I did all these really neat projects. He actually had some of the same appreciation for organizational design and things as you do. But he said, the thing that matters most to me looking back are the relationships. That's where I place the highest priority and the highest value. So just to echo that, that's so important for all of you. Make sure you're prioritizing and focusing on that piece as well. Thank you so much, Shalu. Appreciate you very much. And everybody else, hang tight for more HR Summer School coming right up. All right. So do you see what I meant when I was talking about that before we started, about how that fits together so well? We heard from Keith about these thunderbolt moments and these things that happen that force us to change. And then we hear from Shalu about ways to create change that's focused on the people and the outcomes. And in her words, like, if it doesn't focus on the people, then it's not real change leadership. So I love that. Good stuff. Really quickly, everybody, before I give George a chance to comment, actually, I might not give George a chance to comment until after this one, actually. I'm going to put you on pause, my friend. UKG, I posted this in the comments earlier. They are giving away an Apple HomePod, I believe it's called, and so a mini, and so they're giving away 3 of those. So I'll post a link back in the chat again. They've got like a 5-question little survey for you to take. If you take that, you'll be entered to win. I think we're drawing those winners this afternoon after day 1 is over with. So this isn't a thing you could do tomorrow or later. When I post that in the chat, I'll make sure I post it on the YouTube, on Facebook as well, for those of you watching at those 2 places, to make sure you get that. By the way, if you're one of those people who got stuck and we break LinkedIn. The first year we broke LinkedIn completely. It shut everything down. It was wild. That was a big surprise for me. If your LinkedIn gets hung up, or it's refreshing, or it kicks back to an earlier speaker, you refresh. If it's still not working, there's a link to YouTube and there's a link to Facebook that you should have gotten your email with the link to this event. So you can go check those out there. I'll post the one as well for both of those. If you want to watch either of those places. If you comment there, by the way, we can still see it on our end, and I can still share your comments. So if you are sharing your takeaways and you're seeing as we're going through, we're sharing plenty of takeaways from all of you as you're learning and growing alongside each of us. We're sharing those takeaways here. And George is actually over there using those comments to pick some people who are going to be winning prizes in a little bit. So we'll be announcing some of those winners in a little bit, but I'll post the UKG link to enter to win that Apple HomePod Mini, one of the 3 that they're giving away. I'll post that in a little bit. That'll take you less than 2 minutes to do that, by the way. And our next speaker, I'll go ahead and dive into that one, because we want to make sure we get to this, and then we'll take a quick break, some announcements, some giveaways, and to give a special prize out to someone that we love and appreciate here at Summer School HQ. Next up, we're going to hear from Dr. Allessandria Polizzi, Al, as she likes to be called, and Hannah Hardy-Jones. I had a chance to talk to Al recently on the podcast, talking about resilience and how we can respond to the change and how to build psychological safety in our organizations. It was a fun conversation, and I asked her to come back here. And so she brought Hannah along with her, because they've actually partnered to put together some tools to help HR leaders that are dealing with a lot of stress and everything else, which is one of the reasons we're giving away this book, by the way. So we're going to hear from them during their session, and I'm actually going to give away a couple of the things that they talk about. I don't want to give it away yet. So we'll be giving some things away during this session. Watch the comments. I'll make sure and call your names out towards the end of that, and we'll mention it in the break. We'll put it up on a slide so you can all see. All right. I think that's all the announcements for now. Sorry. Every time I want to jump to the next one, there's always more announcements, more things to get to, more good stuff. So let's go ahead and bring up this session here and hear for number 3 before we take a break. To another fun conversation here at HR Summer School. I'm so glad that you're here with us today, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation, because we're going to do some physician heal thyself conversation, I think, in this. So I have here with me Allessandria, or Al, as she likes to be called, and Hannah. We're going to dive into this conversation around burnout and mental health, and why we we should be focusing that lens, not just externally and supporting our people, which is important, but also on ourselves. And so, ladies, I'm so glad both of you are here. Welcome to the conversation.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
All right. And so before we do the fun stuff, I always give our guests a chance to chime in and tell us more about who they are. And so, Hannah, since you are connecting from the farthest away, once the audience hears your voice, they'll know exactly why. Would you give us a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, sure. So I am coming from New Zealand. I'm the CEO and founder of the Kite program, which is a mental health tech platform focused on micro learning, so small steps each day. And we create amazing app solutions for a wide range of people, and now including HR professionals, which is really exciting.
What I love most about that, by the way, if someone starts digging into your LinkedIn, they'll see that's your background you came from, right? You've been here, you've got the battle scars and all the things that the rest of us do. So you get to talk about it from that perspective of, oh yeah, I've done that. And here's what it feels like. And so I love that about you. All right, Al, your turn.
Thanks, Ben. So I come from HR, traditionally HR. A year ago, I was a burned out CPO, and I have decided to devote my career to helping leaders, teams, and now HR professionals build skills to help them manage stress differently and build resiliency, psychological safety in the workplace. And I partner with Hannah. We co-founded the HR Kite solution that is dedicated to the well-being of HR professionals.
Okay, excellent. And if anybody's listening in and they're like, and I think your name sounds familiar, I had you on the podcast recently. We talked about all these conversations around, again, burnout and resilience and all those kinds of things and why that matters as a conversation today. And I think when we had this event 2 years ago, for those of you that are juniors here at summer school, when we had this conversation 2 years ago, there were people that was a new thing. That was a new conversation. It was like, oh, mental wellness at work really does matter. And I think thankfully now we all have been exposed to enough stress and enough opportunities to talk about this that it's not a new thing anymore. It's not a new conversation, or we've lost some of the, that piece of it. But the thing I'm just going to open it up, whichever one of you wants to chime in first. I'd love to have you share here. But one of the things that we do as HR leaders is it is our job, it is in our responsibilities to focus on and support and care for the people that are in our workplace. And we do a great job of that. We care about their mental health too. But we don't always stop and think about what that means for us, what impact that has on us, and how that limits our ability to be truly as effective as we want to be. And so I just love to open that up a little bit. That's not even a question, really. Open it up a little bit. Are you seeing the same things? Is that true? What is the cost of doing that, of always grinding and never stopping to... All right, I'll stop talking and open that up.
Well, when you and I spoke last, the latest data hadn't come out from HR Dive around the ubiquity of burnout in HR. And that showed that 98% of the participants in that study, all HR professionals, were experiencing burnout. 4 out of 5 of them had an intention to quit their position. And so we're in a crisis from an HR professional point of view. However, Hannah and I started having these conversations late 2021 because what we're seeing this organically through our relationships with people, through our own experiences, and it's something that the number one comment that I get is, I thought it was just me. And so our purpose is to raise the conversation and provide tools and resources to help HR professionals get better in small steps.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. I think this is a global issue. I think it's sometimes really easy to feel like it's just happening in your region or your city, and that all these other HR people around the world are thriving. This is a global issue. And, what putting yourself second constantly and constantly serving others creates this compassion fatigue. When you find people who are feeling completely disengaged with the profession, and that has a huge issue. And as Al said, it is driving people away from the profession, which is a huge concern.
Goodness. What gets me is it's not just driving people away, likely, but it's also driving those away that care the most, because they're going to feel that the most, right? It's the ones who care most deeply, that want to go the extra mile. There's plenty out there that are like, I've been phoning it in for years and I'm going to keep it up, whatever.
Yeah.
But for the ones that are giving it everything they've got, they're the ones who are going to be the most stressed, the most stretched, the most likely to snap at some point and say, I can't take this anymore, and I've just got to do something else because this is too much for me. So
Yeah,
I think that picture you're painting.
And we don't pay enough attention to the unique risks and stresses that exist for us within the HR function. So, one, you just named one, which is that many people who enter the profession tend to be highly empathetic. When you're highly empathetic, you tend to be at what's called a toxin handler. You absorb other people's negative feelings, their emotions, and you carry those with you. Without paying attention to that, that can, again, become very toxic for you as well. Compassion fatigue, as Hannah mentioned it. The other thing that I talk a lot about is loneliness. We have one of the loneliest, especially as an HR leader, we have one of the loneliest positions in the company because of the confidentiality of what we do, the need to not show bias in how we interact with people. And also sometimes we're called the fun police, so we don't get invited to the party. It can be a very lonely position, and we are tribal creatures. So just that alone, paying attention to our need to have human connection that isn't just about people needing something from us, can make a world of difference in people's lives.
One of you said earlier, I apologize, I don't remember which one, but one of you said that people keep saying that, oh, I thought this was just me, right? It's easy to feel like you're in this siloed off area and that everything is, the good thing is events like this allow us to come together and encourage each other, but there are also ways to connect with other people. We have the illusion of connection, right? I've got this many people on Facebook or wherever else, but that's not a real connection, right? When it comes to actually getting a chance to breathe, getting a chance to lift each other up, it's going to require something a little bit deeper. A phone call can do that, right? If you have a real good interpersonal conversation there, but it's not just a check-in, it's not just a text or something like that. Those things don't, I would imagine, and I'm not the doctor here, but those things would not offload someone's stress to the degree that a real deep conversation that plumbs the depths of this is really getting me down, or this is bothering me, or how do you respond to this? Because I don't know what to do now. Those kinds of deep exploratory conversations are more likely to lead to some better outcomes than just the more easy to do, low friction stuff that's maybe kind of meaningless. What's your thought there?
Yeah. Well, so I think if all you can manage is that text, then give yourself that text and be okay with that. Self-acceptance and accepting what we're able to do with kindness and personal care, that's the thing we need to do in order to help ourselves get better. So if all I have the energy to do is leave a voicemail for Hannah where I just make her laugh because it makes me laugh, then that's what I'm going to do today, and that has to be enough.
Yeah, opening up that conversation. I mean, I left the profession to start Kite 3 years ago, and 3 years ago we would not. I cannot recall a time we were talking about well-being or mental health, or it was okay to talk about the tough things, and the only professional development that we were doing were just how to run an investigation more effectively, or those leadership functions. It wasn't about self-care or mental health or anything, and that's only 3 years ago. So I guess that, as you said, the pandemic has actually made people more comfortable talking about it, but I think we're still in a state of complete and utter lack of solutions. Yes, we're talking about these issues, but what exactly are we doing about them? And people are crying out for the solution.
I've done a little bit of digging, so you can speak to it. Obviously, it's your solution. But the little bit of digging that I did, I always look at this through the lens of when I was working in HR day to day, would this have helped me in some way? Right? Would it have made me feel more competent, more confident in the work that I was doing? Would it have taken off some of the stress? Would it have helped me with something I was dealing with? And that was the first thought that I had when I started looking at that is, again, especially right now, HR's always been hard for all the reasons you mentioned, Al, right? It's high stakes, and when everything goes great, congratulations to whatever leader is outside of HR. When everything goes bad, what did you do? Oh my gosh, you didn't see that coming. Somehow I don't get it, but we get the blame, but none of the credit when things go well. And so that's what I thought, though, immediately when I saw this is this puts the power in someone's hands to get some quick, easy support, some insight, some space, essentially. And again, I'm trying to figure out the right words to use here, because this is not the world that I play in day to day, but that's why I wanted you here to talk about this through your perspective, because I've just learned a lot from people that they're smarter than me anyway. So talk more about the benefit, the interaction, what that looks like, if you don't mind, because I'd love to hear like how that plays out. If I'm average HR leader out there and I'm feeling like, you know, I'm this deep and it's about to go here, what help does it offer?
Yeah, so the biggest part is breaking everything down into tiny bite-sized pieces. So the app provides each day a very practical, supportive, but also validating that person activity. So it might be something that they can actually do at that desk right now. It might be something to do when they go home, but practical, and it's all around trying different techniques. So over a 10-day period, you might try 10 different things and 2 of them really resonate with you and you take them into your life. So it's really, really empowering like that. And it's created so that it can fit into your day. So everyone can spend, you know, anyone can spend 3 minutes in the day at some point, even if it's when you're walking to make a coffee and you're reading it on your phone, you know, like it's about really empowering people. And so that's one of the biggest benefits of the program.
The other thing is that we curated specific issues that we face in the HR function. Things like imposter syndrome, setting boundaries, dealing with a difficult client, whether you should sit or quit. And then some you know, more universal like sleep hygiene, neurodiversity, etc. And we also curated contributors. So it isn't just written by Hannah and I, it's written by a cadre of global experts on different topics. And so that gives it a certain dimension. What we want, again, we built this with the intent around giving back to the community that we come from, you know, the people that we feel a part of and the most connected to. So it's very personal for both of us in the work that we're doing, both with the, you know, Kite HR and some of the other work that both Hannah and I do around supporting people and their emotional well-being. So this is just one example.
So I didn't clear this with either of you, but I'm going to do it here live anyway. We're going to give away a couple of individual licenses, if that's okay with you. I'll go right now, pick somebody in the comments. So, hey, if you think this sounds interesting, sounds like it might be helpful for you, I'm going to give away a couple of those right now. So just chime in the comments right now for everybody that's watching this, and we'll take care of that for you. We'll grab a couple of you and we'll call you out the next break so you know who you are. And we'll work with these 2 phenomenal ladies and get that set up for everybody, because I am a believer in this. And again, I said the first thing I thought when I saw this was this would have probably saved me some stress and helped me to respond better in some situations where I needed to disengage and I needed a break and I needed some support, and I kept on plunging ahead because I felt like I had no other option, no other route to take. So thank you both for the work you're doing in the space, for the work you're doing to support HR leaders like this. I think this is so critical and so important. Would you give the way for people to connect or follow or learn more about the app so that we can make sure to get that URL out there?
Yeah, sure. So the website is thekiteprogram.com with 1 M. And there is a link to Kite HR on there. But anyone can follow me on LinkedIn under Hannah Hardy Jones.
Yes, I'll make sure and tag you both in LinkedIn right here in the comments too, so everybody can click right over and follow both of you and tell you their stories and listen in and follow you and all the good stuff. So thank you both for spending some time with us today. I appreciate you. This has gone like whirlwind fast when we have 2 of you together, but I appreciate you both for the work you're doing and for the impact you're having.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Absolutely. To everybody else out there, stay tuned to find out who those winners are in just a minute. And for the rest of you, hang tight. We'll have more HR Summer School coming right up. All right, you caught me trying to get answers or trying to get some of those winners grabbed really quick, trying to grab some names. George, I'm going to need you to tap dance for 1 minute so I can get this finalized, a couple of those names and everything. You were sending them over as we were going through. Any takeaways either from the conversation with Shalu or the conversation just now on kind of self-compassion, things like that? Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, going back to Shalu, you know, it's you and I have been dealing with the diversity and inclusion, DE&I, over the last few months. A lot of studies that you've gathered together. It's is not just the diversity portion, but the inclusion. And what she said really, struck a nerve with me, giving permission to be themselves, right? That's something that I hold dearly. That's the whole heart behind bringing your soul to work, is allowing people to be who they are and who they were created to be within the workplace, and giving them that permission also allows them to be vulnerable to fail and fail forward, and understand that it's okay for that. And so understanding in 2022, the number one priority for talent leaders based on study is, inclusion. And so that really stuck out with me, and understand that not only are companies realizing this change, but employees and future employees are searching for a place to belong that are more transparent. And so that was important to me as well. Her last bit of advice really stuck as well. Don't take yourself too seriously. Man, how often do we get behind the desk in the workplace? And it really led into this conversation that we just ended with, really, right? If you take yourself too seriously, those things drive you to work yourself, to say yes to things that you probably should have said no to. And that leads to that burnout phase. That leads to that place where you feel like everybody's coming to me to do things. Who can I go to, right? It's just the nature of the HR leader, is that we want to solve problems. We're there to provide solutions. We're there to care and give compassion. But what happens when we're leading the world, but we're not leading ourselves, right? And those things are important, and really stuck out, is that we got to take care of the house. We got to take care of ourselves. And how do we do that? Who do we connect with?
I'll share really quickly, and then I'm going to call some winners out, and then we've got a couple of announcements and things. But to that point there that you wrapped with, George, well, hold on. Don't take yourself too seriously is probably my mantra in life. I probably should a little more often take it seriously, but I try to make people smile. I've tried to bring some levity to the conversation, because everybody needs a little bit of that in their life. So I become the person for that. But the piece on really having some compassion on yourself so you can serve others well. If any of you tuned in to HR Summer School Winter Break, which we did a few months ago, one of the things we had Julie Turney on, and she talked about burnout in HR and some of the things that we just heard some of the conversation on. That was her topic for her session. And one of the things that I told her that has been so powerful for me is I hate this imagery that we've used over the last couple of years, where it's become normalized, where it's like, oh, put your own mask on first. I hate that image, because the connotation is things are going to crash, bad things around the corner. I'm just going to survive till the next thing. When I hear that now, I kind of turn it around a little bit. There's this phenomenal religious ceremony where you take a cup and you pour into it until it's full, and then you keep pouring until it runs over. And the image, or the concept, is you can't serve others. You're not serving from a full cup. And the people that I know in HR, very few of us are, I'm just going to put my mask on and say, if I get to you, I get to you. And instead, I want to make sure I take care of myself so that I can really serve you well. And that difference between just surviving and serving from a full cup is the picture that I have in my head when I talk about these kind of things, that self-compassion piece. And so I love those things. And thanks for those takeaways, George. Appreciate it. Okay. For some giveaways, this may seem like a long list, but we're going to do this a couple times a day, every day for the events. So if you're new here, again, I've seen some comments, people saying like, where's summer school been all my life? I'm probably paraphrasing a little bit, but we're here. That's where we are. So we're glad that all of you are here with us. Some quick giveaways, run through the list. Congratulations again. So if you're on this list, you see your name here, reach out to our team, events@lhra.io, that email address there at the bottom. I'll make sure it's in a couple times a day, so you always have that. But if you ping, just say, hey, I won this thing, and Rebecca will get your name gathered up, and we'll get you set. And she's actually in the comments, I think. Rebecca, give everybody a shout out if you're in the comments still. Just say hello to everybody so they can say hello back. But we're giving away some of the books, but also some of the Kite HR subscriptions. Transparently, I haven't even worked out with the two ladies who just spoke how to do that, but I'll circle up with them. So if you're one of these people, Jesse, Anne Marie, Hannah, or Denise, just ping Rebecca there at the email address, and we'll get you set up for that. And we'll be giving away some other awards and things as we go through today. So don't you worry. Stay tuned for that. There's more good stuff coming, more things to share. All right. So I think now, George, we actually were going to unveil the winner for this year's Unity Award. Are you ready for that?
I'm excited. I'm always ready.
Did I tell you I put together a special video for it? I didn't tell you that, did I?
Let's
Uh,
are we going to show it first?
We're going to show it first. We're going to show it. So last year, for those of you that don't know, George actually showed up at my house. He was invited, so there's that. But he showed up at my house with a special gift, and I actually have it right here at my desk. I look at it every day, and it was completely unexpected. He brought that as a thank you to me for the work that I've done putting summer school together. And I told him I'd only accept it on the condition that we give it to someone else every year, a unity award to recognize their support for the community, their activity, all those kind of things. And so we went back and forth a little bit on who we thought was this year's winner. And so I am excited to share this video with you. It's 45 seconds, very short, but to announce who that winner is, because they don't even know who it is, by the way. I've seen them in the comments already today, but they don't even know who it is yet. So let's go ahead and bring this up and celebrate alongside them.
I've never seen this. I'm excited. It's a box inside of a box. Custom to the camera. HR Summer School 21. On the heels there.
All right. So Mildred, I saw you in the chat earlier. You had no idea that was coming, but congratulations to you for winning this year's Unity Award. George and I will get with you to figure out your size or all those kind of things. That's actually George's area. He's a shoe expert. I'm just here running the show, darn it. So he'll make sure and get the details from you. So congratulations, Mildred, for just being an active participant, for congratulations on the recent graduation, all those fun things. And we appreciate you for what you do. Just bringing a positive and encouraging voice to the community. Thank you so much. George, any comments from you on what the Unity Award was or what it means to you, since you're the one who started this tradition?
You know, I think the representation of what it means to me is everything that we've experienced so far this morning, right? It's bringing a bunch of people together from all walks of life, from every race, background, ethnicity, and it's come together and embodying a connection that says, you know, we may have similar titles, but we come from different areas, but together we can be one. And it's a lifestyle. It's something that we do. It's who we are, with or without the titles. And I think, Mildred, congratulations on everything that you've done over the course of the year, been a part of HR Summer School, and you know how you connect with others, you encourage others. I've been a person who's gotten that inbox message or comment, and it always comes in timely ways. And so, congratulations! It's unity. It's bringing together you and I.
Goodness, love it. Awesome. Thank you again, George, for surprised me last year and for encouraging me to do that again and take that forward. So we love paying it forward here. That's one of our big values here at Summer School. So without any further ado, we gave some stuff away. We celebrated someone in the community here that we love and appreciate, and we're going to go back to the good stuff. So our next speaker is Dan Griffith. We're going to hear from him about we have about an hour left, by the way, for today. So not much time left to get through our last couple speakers. So we're going to hear from Dan about the importance of mediation, this critical HR skill. And it was a fun discussion because he teaches it, he has experienced it, he's done this for a long time. And we talk about the difference between kind of the textbook version and what it really looks like in real life. So I think this is a fun, practical set of good takeaways from this one. All right, without any further ado, let's jump in. Glad you're here with us at Summer School, and I hope you've been having an incredible event so far. I know I've been enjoying the comments and the engagement and all the other fun stuff we've been seeing this year. It's been just, I don't know how it gets better every year, and yet it's better every year. And so I've been looking forward to this conversation specifically because one of the things that you learn very quickly in HR is there's this whole set of tools we need in our toolbox in order to be effective in our jobs. And every once in a while, I like to take you in a deep dive in certain areas to understand the nuances, the different things that we may not see in our day-to-day work that will help us be better and more effective in the work we do. So Dan's here to talk to us about some of those things around mediation, which is his specialty, where he spends his time. And so Dan, I'm really glad to have you here with us. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, before I get into some of the fun stuff with you and we get into the nuts and bolts of this, would you take a minute and tell the audience a little more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, again, I'm glad to be part of this summer school and to share insights on this topic. Yeah, I'm Dan Griffith, and I guess it's the broad view is I'm a mediator and also an educator. In terms of this conversation today, just have a lot of passion around educating, training others to be mediators in sort of everyday workplace and life settings. So I guess that distinguishes a little bit from lawyer mediators, although I am that too. But certainly, the real work, day-to-day sort of background there. Little other background just that informs that, I guess, is being a lawyer, being a registered mediator, also involved in work at Indiana University, a lot of background in human resources, equal opportunity, DEI work, done that for years. And I'm also a teacher part-time, but teach undergraduate and graduate courses in alternative dispute resolution, negotiation skills, mediation practice, and so forth. So, but again, I do have this passion and interest in helping HR professionals and professionals in a lot of other areas to be effective at the workplace, day-to-day setting of mediation, which I think is underutilized actually. So.
Okay, throwing down the gauntlet a little bit for everybody out there saying, hey, by the way, you should be using this more and you're not yet. So I think this is going to help equip them hopefully in the conversation today. So I'm excited about this. I'll start off. I just want to tell you really quickly, the audience has probably heard me say this at least once or twice or a dozen times if they've been around for a couple of years, but I wanted to be in HR when I was a kid. I just didn't know what it was called. And the funny version of that I always throw out there is I was the older middle of 4 boys. So not the position authority of the CEO, the oldest, where I could just tell what to do. So I was always like brokering deals, people to agree to things they didn't want to do. And so I've always thrown that around kind of as a joke. But as I was prepping for this conversation, I was thinking, I wonder how close that sort of thing is, like bringing different parties together. How close is that to actually what mediation looks like in real life?
Yeah, I think that may be what brings a lot of people into the HR profession. I'll say, unfortunately, sometimes then we get into HR and we're diverted into other areas. Now, there's obviously good skills in other areas and need for that. But sometimes I guess it's that big being a people person kind of thing, which we need to balance a little bit with practical applications. But I do think what you just described is kind of what I would hope a lot of HR professionals would see a role as playing is, and a lot of what I talk to them about in training and just day to day and helping develop these skills is to be cognizant of where conflict occurs in the workplace and where they can play that role and see themselves in playing a role to facilitate good conversations. And so it's definitely the process of seeing it, understanding it, recognizing the role they can play, and then having the skills to enter into the right process to get people at the table. And by the way, I say not just the table. It's not always the formal setting. It's the informal settings to have the conversations and facilitate that to help parties listen to one another to improve their work relationships in a lot of contexts. So I think that's spot on, Ben, in terms of that mindset you had growing up. I think that applies to being that HR professional now. Yeah.
Wonderful. It worked out. Apparently it worked out. So that's all that really matters, right? I was just kind of curious about that one. It's funny because I was thinking about probably the parallels and just the work that you have to do. I want to ask you a question that kind of goes practical into the skills and things. But before I do that, I'm curious if you could give us a couple examples, because I really want to give the audience some ideas about, oh, I run into that and I didn't realize I could have used some of these mediation skills to solve for that. So could you give me just 2 or 3 kind of use cases real quick about examples where conflict occurs, to use your terms there, where that might be a good hotspot to keep your eye out for?
Yeah, well, a couple of examples just from the last couple of weeks of mediating a couple of situations. Just recently, a couple of senior leaders of a unit within IU, just having some challenges in communicating, just different management styles, work styles. And so facilitating a conversation to, I hope in that case, to move forward to address more effectively plans and procedures and things like that. In that case, it really seemed a variance in terms of someone being very day-to-day practical and someone having this broader vision, and how do you connect those and how do you work on projects around that. Not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, it was just 2 colleagues who just a misunderstanding, and actually in that regard, misunderstandings because of some illness, some absences, COVID, and how do we get back together and address those misunderstandings of things that happen sort of in the silence of activity that were going on. But, I've done, sort of, different levels. It could be supervisor, manager, it could be 2 managers, it could be 2 employees, or it could be more. I've done team sort of situations. Sometimes they're short-lived engagements, sometimes there are a number of meetings. So if that helps give some context.
Yeah, it really does. Because I'm thinking in my head, I had a picture of what it might be, and I really wanted to give enough of a cast a net wide enough so that anyone listening right now, all of you out there, that you could say, okay, yes, I've had that situation, right? The first one he mentioned, or the second one, or any of those that he threw out there, we've probably seen at some point in our careers, but likely you've experienced one of these, whether you put the label on it, like, hey, this is a chance for a little bit of conflict resolution, a little mediation, right? Even if you put the label on it, it was an opportunity for that. And I'm hoping to open up everybody's radar, essentially, and go in the coming days, coming weeks, for those opportunities to put some of those things to practice that you're about to talk about, by the way.
Yeah, if I could make just one extra point to that.
Sure.
Now, there may be some in this group who are in employee relations work, and their mindset on mediation, which is appropriate, might be very formalized because it relates to discipline, relates to progressive discipline, grievance, whatever, and there's a place for that. So I'm talking about that, yes, but I'm also talking about the broad perspective of more informal engagements before it gets to something that escalates. So I think there's roles in all those places for these skills.
Thank you for that, by the way. That was, when you started talking a minute ago, I was thinking, like, all these seem, to any of us, that made it seem like this small little blip, like that's just part of daily work. But the hope is, if you can catch it when it is this big, and you can have those conversations, and you can smooth those things and help people see the other perspectives. And again, I'm making guesses about what you're going to share with us in a minute on the important skills and aspects here. But if you can do those things when it's small, it doesn't become a big raging inferno that demands everyone's attention and causes untold amounts of damage to the culture and the people and everything else. So you talk about it just a matter of factly, but I think that part of that just says, let's take the emotion out of it. Let's figure out what's going on, and let's tackle it. So with that kind of set up, all this stuff we've shared so far, I'd love to just open it up to you. If we take, usually when you're going through and people talking about the skills that are important in HR, mediation may be lumped in as a skill, but it's actually, I would imagine, probably a batch of different things, different skills, different subsets and things like that. So I'd love to hear from you. What sort of skills are important to develop if anyone in this audience, and I'm going to go ahead and say everyone in this audience, needs to know them in order to be better and more effective as an HR leader?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with, these are skills that HR professionals, I think for the most part, already have. So it's obviously tapping into those innate skills. If you know nothing else about mediation, it's reinforcing good listening skills. That would probably be top on the list, would be listening at an empathetic level. So it's a matter of, what am I doing, first of all, as a mediator or potential mediator, what am I doing to demonstrate to the other person I'm hearing it from their perspective? But if you have a group or 2 people, what am I doing to help one, to ensure one is fully hearing the other before they respond? So I think that the key is listening is a top of the list in sort of these issues. But obviously in that listening, in that process, it's obviously helping people fill in information about the stories they're experiencing and relating to conflict. So the patience around that, I don't know if that's a skill versus a characteristic, but the patience around giving time for those stories to come out, managing emotion, not being reactive. I think some of the best mediators, things can explode at times. And when I say that, it could be shouting or loudness, anger, again, as long as it's not physically dangerous, or shutting down, but the emotions are strong. So it's being confident and calm in those moments, and being able to help people and talk through and help them identify what are the barriers that are keeping them from being honest, being vulnerable, not being threatened. What am I doing to create safe spaces to have these conversations? The process of mediation is a matter of hearing the stories, a matter of doing framing around, here's what I'm hearing you say, and putting it in different words that someone can understand and respond to. I think the other skill beyond that would be good, if you have good negotiation skills, and particularly good negotiation in the context of a collaborative negotiation versus an adversarial negotiation, because there's distinctions there. Understanding, how can I get parties to get to some bottom line issues? What are the walkaway points? What are the interests that need to be heard? what are the barriers to getting to a resolution, and how do we overcome those barriers? And being exhaustive. I often talk about being the last person in the room to give up, and to really keep them at it and support them. You know, there are issues of neutrality. Typical mediators being neutral, being obviously not taking sides.
Impartial.
But impartial, yeah. But some of the mindsets of some mediators, particularly in the legal environment, not entirely, and that environment is changing too, is this idea of not taking sides suggests this distance from the parties. And at times there is that place, but there's a reverse thinking of that, and that is, I'm here to take both your sides. I'm here to advocate for a process that supports both of you. I want to make sure you're both fully heard and you're both fully hearing the other person. And you can do that and be connected with the parties, being empathetic without damaging that neutrality, that impartiality. But sometimes I think the mindset in some training is that it's this coldness. And as HR professionals, as people in the workplace, you're going to know the people often that you're helping mediate. You're going to be connected and know about their situations already. And there's certain places maybe you shouldn't mediate because you're too close. A colleague might do it, but there are many places where the parties themselves don't feel threatened by your prior knowledge, your prior relationship, but that the fact that you connect with them, that you're caring, you're empathetic, that matters. And I guess in some worlds of mediation training, that's not emphasized enough, but I think it's vital. So again, that's a smattering of different kind of skills, things that are important here.
I took a bunch of notes on that because I think there's so many important takeaways. And one of the things that occurred to me as you were sharing that, when you were talking about the shouting thing, I was thinking about, like, today, if we're in a virtual workplace, I've got a mute button over here, right? I can turn those things down. I'm curious, that led me to wonder about, is it harder to do some of these things if people are not together? Because when you're knee to knee, when you're eye to eye, there's a little bit of, it feels like there's more of a connection there. Maybe there's more tension, I don't know, but it feels like there's more opportunity to bring them together than when they're separate, they're remote, they're far apart, and they're not going to be physically together. Is that easier, harder, or it's just one more flavor of difficult?
Yeah, well, the reality is in the last couple of years, whether it's easier or harder, it's often we've had no choice, right?
It just is. Okay.
Things like that. So, I mean, I think that, so even when I train, so I do training with different groups and different institutions on mediation, lately it's been, even the training has been online because of those dynamics. And obviously there's Zoom can facilitate that, breakout rooms and all that. Although I want to note that mediation at my level is staying in the room for the most part, not separate meetings, it's caucusing ideas. So that's sort of what the lawyers do many times, but it's, we're in the room. But yes, I do talk, whether in a training or even in a dynamic of mediating, say it's you and somebody else in this call right now, for example, acknowledgement. The best we can do is acknowledge that, we might have to slow things down doing it online. We might have to, and as a mediator, I may be more attentive to, I'm sensing some discomfort, but I can't totally tell because of the distance, even though we have the video on. I mean, I think fundamentally it is easier being in the room, but it's not impossible. And we're doing it more and more, the profession overall, whether it's at the level I'm talking about or what the lawyers do, it is more and more being online because we have to. And I just think we have to account for the change. We get nonverbals by seeing each other on camera, but there's that distance, there's I'm sure there's studies on it that something's missed in the total message by being virtual, and we just have to account for it and acknowledge it. I think is the best way I could suggest in how we deal with it. So yeah,
I'm thinking even like the smallest things. Like I'm looking at the camera right now, and not looking at you, so I can't see the face you're making right now because I'm looking right. And so like that's the thing you learn when you learn to speak online. It's like I've got to look at the camera, not at the person, even though like I want to see you and interact with you. And so like that's even the little things like that can make it feel, well, I'm looking at you and responding to your facial expressions. You don't see my eyes because I'm not looking directly at where you are. So like thinking all these variables that probably make that more difficult in some ways to do that. But as we said, it just is what it is.
Right.
Goodness. Okay. Goodness. I've written down so many good things in this. I'm really excited about taking some of these and putting into practice some of the things that I do both at work and outside of work, as a board leader for a nonprofit, some other things like that. Like there's always opportunities to,
And I want to make that point that I think obviously one point about HR, again, even SHRM, for example, is, relationship management, that competency, there are some references to mediation skills, but it's life skills. So, thinking in terms of applications in other areas versus the formal process. So you say board meeting, family, community, all those are applications. Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. Well, this has been tremendous. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us and for sharing. If someone wants to connect, wants to follow you, wants to learn more about the work that you do, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think the best way is I am on LinkedIn from Indianapolis, Indiana. You'll find that easily enough. And happy to connect. Send me a message that way. If it leads to further information, I'll certainly happen to follow up to connect in a way we can talk further. But absolutely, I look forward to connecting and sharing more about this. So
wonderful. All right. HR Summer School family, make sure you reach out, connect with him. I'll make sure Dan's link is here in the comments and you can connect with him directly on LinkedIn, follow him, let him know that you loved hearing him on HR Summer School. And I will catch all of you in just a little bit with more Summer School coming right up. Okay. Goodness. See, it's funny because in my head, I'm thinking we have these like really interesting and inspirational conversations, and we go to something that's a little more tactical, frankly. Right? And we all love it because someone said, hey, I want to take that thing I heard earlier. I want to slow down a bit. I want to weave it together with this and really use that encouragement from earlier to use that to help me listen. And so it's fun to see people already starting to blend these things together and create their framework for how they're going to put these things into practice and how they're going to use these ideas that we're learning today in the conversation. So Dan, well done, my friend. Great job. That was so much fun to hear you share those things. And I got some good notes and ideas, and it looks like it landed really well with everyone else here as well. Some good comments and things like that. All right, we're gonna press on. We're gonna dive right into our next conversation with Kelby Tansey from Southwest Airlines. So Kelby is a ball of fire. You're gonna pick that up really quickly. She's so sharp, so smart, and I enjoyed it so much because she talks a lot about how they tap into their internal people. Yes, they're a big company, but they do some really unique things. And I want you to listen to this as we're talking about every company that I've talked with recently has got hiring issues, struggling to find the right people. We need to be looking at the internal people we have and making sure they know what opportunities are there before we go out into the bigger world out there, because these people know our culture, they know our values, they know what we're about, and our wonky processes, they know all those things. And so we're going to dive into this, come back before our very last session, and George and I will wrap up with some key takeaways and some more giveaways. So hang tight. Let's hear from Kelby. Welcome back to Summer School. I hope you've been having a great day today so far, getting good notes, taking a lot of good takeaways, all that good stuff. We have another session here for you. We're going to dive into some great things around hiring your internal talent, looking for the people inside your business that are already adding value and finding some other ways to help them find new meaning, find new life, or, kind of refresh them a little bit with other opportunities in the business. And I'm so excited to be talking with Kelby Tansey here from Southwest Airlines. We're going to dive into those things and more. Kelby, welcome. I'm glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Glad to be on.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be a blast. I've been so looking forward to this. I've got all these questions I want to ask you. And as I was telling you before we even started, I have more questions I want to ask and we have time to answer them. So I'm going to try to really prioritize and get right to the good stuff, because I feel like the audience here, the leaders I'm talking to, the organizations I'm talking to, they're trying to figure out right now how to solve for a lot of problems, recruiting, retention being the primary ones. And I feel like this is a fun intersection of those things. So I'm looking forward to getting into it. Before we dive into that stuff though, could you take a second and let the audience know a little more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Kelby Tansey, and I am our manager of our recruitment marketing team here at Southwest Airlines. My team is responsible for employer brand, recruitment marketing, and candidate experience functions here at Southwest. And I've been at Southwest for just a little bit over 5 years. So I am Dallas-based out of our headquarters, and really excited to share with you all what we're doing for our internal mobility, internal talent, and hiring. Some really cool things that we have invested in over the last couple of years, and hopefully some good takeaways for you too. So summer school's in session. Let's get going.
All right, let's make it happen. So one of the things that I know we do a lot of research. One of the things that keeps coming over and over again is the importance of looking at your internal talent first. Right? They've already said yes once. They're probably likely to say yes again. But it's also a powerful retention lever. It gets them more engaged, all those kind of things. And so I'd love to hear from you. How are you and the team approaching this at Southwest?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing I'll state is this has always been a passion at Southwest. So we have always been focused on internal mobility. When I started 5 years ago, I was always inspired by the people who had been at Southwest 20, 30, 40 years. And if you ask them about all the jobs that they had during their time there, they would just go on and the things that they learned and how they were able to take those things they learned into the next job and continue contributing to the company. People who had started on the front line and then maybe moved into a leadership position and then maybe moved into a different IC position. I mean, really just getting that full, well-rounded career experience, but all at the same company and continuing that passion and driving us forward to our purpose. So it's something that I was just in awe of when I started my career at Southwest, and I continue to be amazed by the ways that we invest in internal mobility and internal recruiting at Southwest. One of those ways is we did invest in technology in 2019. So we are on the Phenom People platform for our external career site and CRM, and we decided to go with them for an internal mobility platform as well as a referrals platform. One of the reasons we were really passionate about that is as people applied through our external platform and got this really cool, robust experience, but then when they were in the door and went to go look at internal careers, it was just a list of jobs. We were like, well, that doesn't quite match the experience that they had externally. And to us, what that meant is it showed we were investing in getting them in the door, but not investing in keeping them here. And that didn't align with our values and who we are at Southwest. So we made that intentional investment in that tool so that now they are able to log in, create a profile, upload their skills, their interests, get recommendations for jobs, have job alerts come to them, alongside being able to refer others to work at Southwest too. So that's been a very valuable long-term investment for us. But the other investment we made is in resources, in people. So in 2021, we established a career mobility team. This was essentially an internal career advising team that has grown now to 10 team members. 8 of them are career mobility partners, and they have a team lead and a coordinator, and they offer our internal employees career advising, interview prep, resume review. They host virtual days in the field so you can learn about other departments and what they do and the skills to get there. Department spotlights, webinar events, so much more. Their job is not internal hiring. I want to be really clear about that. Our recruiters still handle our internal hiring. This team is solely focused on preparing our employees for our internal hiring process so that they can have the best chance in that process and that they can put their best foot forward. So that's been incredibly successful. Happy to share more about what they do and how we did that and what that looks like. But I would say those investments, the value you place on it as a company, the technology investment paired with an investment in resources and people have proved to be really successful for us.
That gets me, honestly, because I'm thinking about this, and many of the leaders I talk to, they think, okay, let's make the opportunities visible to people and then put all the burden on them to make sure that they just know what to do next. And we don't often think through what that looks like, what happens if someone applies, we say no to them, what happens if all these kind of opportunities wrapped into this are chances to build a deeper relationship or break it, right, if you do it poorly. Right. And we should care about them the most because they've already said yes to us once. They're already committed to us. And so it's ours to lose, essentially. So one of the things you said there was this virtual days in the field thing. I'm kind of curious about that, if you don't mind exploring that a little bit.
Yeah, first though, I'll say, I always say internally, it's never fair to tell an employee that they have to drive their own career and then refuse to hand them a map or tell them where the road is. Why would we do that? It doesn't make any sense. So that's something that I've really valued in my time here at Southwest. And to me, this Career Mobility Center, that's the map. It's where you're going. It's really helping you to navigate that. I guess you could even liken it to a GPS because they're real humans. They're helping there. But yeah, I think investing in that is really important to empower our employees to drive their career forward and give them the resources to do that. Ask your question again. I'm sorry, I lost it.
hey, the
Virtual
career
days in the field.
Yeah,
Virtual career days. Yeah. So days in the field are something that Southwest has had established before this team. We actually used to call it walk a mile, which I think is really a fun way to say you get to go walk a mile in somebody's shoes. And then they evolved into days in the field, which was just go to a department, learn about it. Our employees from the field could actually come to headquarters if that's where we were hosting the day in the field, and hear from that department the different entry-level opportunities and growth opportunities and what they do. To me, the value of that is two-pronged. It's not just about learning about career opportunities. It is establishing that trust between the departments and understanding that we are all in this together. We are successful as a company because every person shows up every day and does the job that they were hired to with passion and with that vision of where we're going. It's really a cool program because you get both of those things out of it. Obviously 2020 happened. We moved to taking a lot of things very virtual. We were actually in a hiring freeze from March of 2020 until mid of last year. And this team was established right as we were coming out of that hiring freeze. So one of the things that they committed to doing was to take that day in the field experience and make it virtual so that it's accessible by all of our employees. We serve 118 different locations. And so it's just not always feasible that our employees in the field would be able to take time off and come to headquarters and be able to work that around their schedule. So taking it virtual has given that same experience, but in a way that's accessible to so many more of our employees.
Again, one of those things.
It's great.
one of those things like, hey, we can adapt. We can't just say, okay, it's gone. That was
Right.
no more. Let's find another way to do this in a way that's easier. We can spread the message to more people. We can help more of them see this that couldn't get here, in person because they have some of the responsibility or something else preventing them from traveling. Like there's a benefit to that probably. Everybody wants to be in person again, but to give them something else that allows you to access more people, that's kind of fun. One of the things I want to throw at you, one of the stats from our new study I want to throw at you because I want to get your take on this. When we're looking at people who are doing frontline work, which many people at Southwest would fall in that category, one of the things we found in there is the number one reason that these candidates in the broader market are applying for a job and then ghosting the employer is because they did not see advancement opportunities. And so it plays such a critical role. And I just want to get your take on that. When you are going through the process, if someone's coming into Southwest, for example, and they're thinking about you being their next employer, are you sharing these kind of things with them during that process? Say, hey, this isn't just you're stuck here forever, but here's what we've got next for you. We're casting a vision for your future. What's that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Telling those stories about our leaders who have moved into leadership after going through that process, right? And connecting, this is real life. This is their experience and what they've gone through. I also think that as a secondary effect gives this connection to that leader of they know what I'm going through as an individual contributor, as a frontline employee, whatever that might be, because they've lived it. They started there. So part of it is just storytelling. And then part of it is highlighting this benefit of the career mobility program and that any employee can partake and participate in that program. So absolutely highlighting that on our career site throughout their employee journey. It's also core to our employer brand framework and who we are and how we're highlighting some of those stories as well, which is cool. I would say, especially in this labor market, people that are current employees that you have, they're not just making a decision between their current role at their current company and a new role at their current company, right? There's this third factor, which is a new role somewhere else. So just being really cognizant of that opportunity has always been on the table, but in this labor market, it's just highlighted more and more. And if one of your values is being a company that values growth, values internal mobility, it'll be sniffed out pretty quickly if you're not actually living up to that and if you're not being authentic to that. On the flip side, you have that opportunity to gain their trust when they get in the door and they hear things from other employees about their 20, 30, 40-year journey, right? Just like I did. One of the things that's really cool, you told me I would come up with stories to share throughout this, and I just did. So I'm going to share. We have a new program that we've established, which is our Junior Technology Associate Program, or JTAP. And JTAP is a way that it's a very entry-level role into technology, right? So looking at opening up some of those diversity pipelines and giving them a route to be a software engineer at Southwest. We recently had an employee, last December, our CEO was at his station. He was a ramp agent, which is our entry-level role that loads bags on the plane, pushes the plane back, takes care of our customers' luggage throughout their journey. So this employee had expressed to our CEO, hey, I went and I got my associate's degree. I went to a boot camp and I got experience. There's not a role for me. What do I need to do? How can I bridge this gap? And our CEO sent him our way, and our team was able to reach out and explain there is a new program, this JTAP program. Why don't you apply, see if this fits where you might be going, gave him some advising sessions. You can see where this is going. Not only did he get the role, but on the day we were going to extend him the offer, we reached out to our CEO to see if he would be the one to extend the offer. And he was totally pumped to do it. So excited to hear that this employee had taken this path. And he actually started that program a month ago now. So really cool to see that internal growth. And again, it starts at the top. Like our CEO was invested in this one employee and their internal career journey at Southwest.
I love the story, because it would have been so easy to say, oh, well, hey, look on the website for jobs or whatever else.
Go apply, whatever.
Right?
Yeah, no.
But that's, again, we owe this duty of care to the people we've already hired to treat them really well and to be considerate of them. And as you said, that we can't take it for granted that they're going to be here tomorrow. We've got to treat them well today, so they will be here tomorrow. And so any lessons that you've learned in this experience so far, because I know it's a journey, you're evolving, you're learning, you're already, spinning up new programs, everything else to try to solve certain problems. Any lessons you've learned so far that the other leaders listening in right now could take some notes on, or say, oh, I've got to go do that, or that's a really good takeaway there? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say we recognize it can be a foundational shift. If your company has not been built on this as a value, that can be tough. And the more that you can gather research, gather information, and then it sounds like the report you all are about to put out would be a fantastic resource for that. But being able to gain that buy-in where you need it, identify who your key stakeholders are there, and bring people along with you. I think reducing that friction so that the employee doesn't feel it long term, right? Because they'll be the one who feels it in the long run if those stakeholders aren't brought on at the appropriate times. I would say just some of the things that we have seen, reducing the onboarding or barrier of entry time for an employee that's moving from internal, because they're not having to learn the PTO system, the intranet, even if they're moving into a role where they're stretching their skills a little bit, some of that base foundational knowledge for your company, they're bringing it with them. And oftentimes they're bringing a perspective that you likely don't have. So having that perspective brought onto your team will likely expand, what you are doing and contribute to it in the long run. Also, I would just say our recruiters have seen more qualified employees that are applying and also less unqualified employees applying. So if you're just looking at it by a straight time of hire metric, we've seen improvement there because employees know what the role is. They know what they're getting themselves into, and they're not just mass applying. They're intentionally applying to the things that fit their skills and fit their interests because they've had the opportunity to actually learn about it. So all the way around, I think you can dig up some really great research to help bring people on board with you as you move forward in this.
I love that. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of one of the people, right, at Southwest. I'm thinking, well, we talk about the virtual days and all these other kinds of things that you're doing that help to grease the skids, to make that easy. Because you said earlier, hey, by the way, this isn't us taking this off of the other people in this. This is us making it very transparent, very easy for you to understand, so you can make an informed decision, as you just said, right, about what's next for you. Because guess what, you're in charge of your career, but we're gonna give you the keys, we're gonna give you the map, right, the GPS, and we're gonna put gas in the tank too. We're gonna make sure you're ready to go when you're ready to go. So that is so fun. If someone wants to learn more about what you and the team are up to, or if they want to follow you on LinkedIn, I don't know what the best way is to send them right now, but I'd love to offer them a way to connect with you or to follow what y'all are up to, just to see more examples of this and to hear more about what Southwest is up to.
Yeah, would love that. Please follow me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to share more information there. I will also note that employer brand framework that I mentioned earlier. We're in the middle of an activation and rollout for that. So capturing some really incredible employee stories that we're going to be sharing a little bit later this year. So certainly follow along on our Southwest Careers page. It's careers.southwestair.com. Or you can follow any of our social channels. We are just under the normal Southwest Airlines social channels because our people are the heart of what we do. So being able to share about our people there is really valuable for us, both from our strategy perspective, but also as we work to retain our employees too. So follow any of those and you'll be seeing some more stories coming very, very soon.
Oh, that's tremendous. Thank you again for spending some time with us. This has been so much fun. Again, I've got a longer list of questions over here I want to get to and dive into. Next time we'll make it happen. So thank you again for joining us. You're just incredible. I love your passion for this, by the way. It's some people can talk through the process and everything else, but I can hear in your voice and you start talking about the people you're serving, just that excitement of being able to do that. And I think that really resonates with the others here who are listening in.
Yeah, well, I would say what we always say at Southwest is it's one team, all heart. Without a heart, it's just a machine. And we really value our people. That's who we are. We're true to that, to our core. And so I am really passionate about it. And I appreciate the time here to share. And hopefully this impacted some of you in a way that you're able to take this back to your organization and open up some of these opportunities for your employees as well.
Excellent. And if the rest of you weren't taking notes, I did. So I've got mine to share. So thank you again, Kelby. I appreciate you. To all of you out there, hang tight for another HR Summer School session coming right up. So Kelby is now part of the HR Summer School family. Like, we're going to adopt her in because she's got so much energy, so much passion for this. Incredible stories and examples there, and really making this feel tangible for us, right? These things are opportunities that we can solve, whether we're big, we have resources like Southwest, or even just some of the key things that I'm seeing in the comments here about, hey, you know what? Investing in your people first before we think about finding someone outside the business. Just those simple things can lead to so much value there. All right. We have one last session for the day. I don't know how it's already here. We have one last session for the day. And then George and I are going to spend some time together wrapping up. So George, I know you were like probably itching over there. I see you like shaking your seat, ready to jump up. So I'll give you the microphone when we come back off this break, let you share some of your takeaways and things for the day. We'll give some more things away, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it so far. We have one last session for the day, and then we'll give you a preview for what tomorrow holds. Hang tight. Let's get our last speaker up here. We're going to hear from Julie Barker, who I had the pleasure of meeting virtually recently. Julie is again, you're going to hear some similarities to these conversations. She's a lot of passion for recruiting and doing it well. So I saw some comments. Josh Rock commented a minute ago, like, hey, time to hire may not be the best metric. I'm with you there, Josh. And so some of you others were talking about balancing the recruiting retention piece. So I just gave you some good stuff on retention. Let's go into the recruiting side with Julie and hear some of her strategies for how to do it well today. Right, here we go. Summer School family, so glad to be here with you with another fun conversation. And we've touched on all kinds of really good stuff here at the event, everything from learning to mediation to, goodness, a little bit of everything, career advice. And in this conversation, I want to talk a little bit more about recruiting, something that probably is top of mind for a lot of you. And it's one of those things that we're all looking for, that easy button, wherever it might be. And so I'm really hoping Julie's going to give you some wisdom in this conversation that easy button may not exist. Number one, sorry, spoiler alert. But she's going to give you some good practical tips around what you can do. And I can't wait to get into that stuff, Julie. I'm so glad you're here with us. Welcome.
I'm so glad to be here. It's awesome to be a part of this, and looking forward to even some hopefully live conversations with all of you coming up too.
Awesome. Well, I know that the audience is going to go ahead and jump on that, by the way. So Julie's going to be here in the chat. Just say hello to her, reach out to her. I know she'll be glad to hear from you. And feel free to click right on over. We'll remind you at the end too, but click over and connect with her on LinkedIn here. Tell her that you loved hearing her on Summer School, because I know she'll appreciate it. And I'm giving you a preview of what's to come for sure, because I know you're going to love it. So Julie, before we get to some of the fun stuff I was teeing up there for the audience, would you take a minute and give us a little more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have spent a majority of my career in tech and tech services. So everything from HR leadership roles, recruiting leadership roles. My last role being head of talent for a startup in SaaS as an employee 29, and have been in organizations as large as 180,000. So I think many in between. So have a lot of that different kind of scale experience right now as a consultant. I went out on my own about a year ago, seeing such a great opportunity to work with startups and scale ups as they're really building that foundation for talent for their organization. So focusing on fractional talent leadership, recruiting strategy, and helping them hire their recruiting and talent acquisition leaders. And so have a huge passion in this area, and it's fun to get to work with so many different organizations working through so many different things in this time. So
awesome. Hiring the people who hire the people. That sounds like a fun.
yes.
A fun experience there. Neat. Okay. Wonderful. Well, as I said for the audience earlier, we're going to be talking about hiring in this conversation. And because you're getting this chance to do it across multiple companies, all these different touch points, you have a really unique perspective and a kind of a perch up there watching what's happening in the landscape. And so I'd love to hear from you when it comes to this right now. What do you think is the biggest stumbling block that employers just keep tripping over on a regular basis? And maybe you can shine a light on over there so we don't trip on it so often. Go for it.
Yeah, so I think, there's several things. There's so many different kind of challenges during this time, and some things that everyone is kind of seeing across the board, some unique things that some folks are seeing. And I think one of the key themes and coming across is I put it in the bucket of kind of control what you can control. And, what are those things in your company's ability to own and really have control of? What are the things within the talent acquisition team? And some of those in coming across are everything from every touch point within your candidate experience. And do you truly know what those are? Do you know what that full candidate experience looks like? And are you intentional about it? Is it an intentional experience? So that's something I would say is huge within that.
You used a word that I don't hear people use very often, and you said intentional candidate experience right there. And usually it's just, well, this is the way it is. It's a default, or this is the way we've always done it, or this is how we did it in my last company. So let's just keep doing that, regardless of whether it's creating the picture of what it looks like to work here and what it's going to be like and how we treat you and all those kinds of variables that someone's really seeking to understand in that process. What if I, again, you get to do this every day, so this might be like your playground, but if I said, hey, blank slate, I want you to help us get a couple of tips together for how to design something that is truly intentional around this. What are some of your must-haves, 2 or 3 things, like this has got to be part of it, or you have to think about this part, or don't take that for granted? Anything there?
Yeah, I would say first, it's one of those, sometimes it seems like a daunting task. It's actually really quick and easy to do just like a customer journey, go through your candidate experience journey, map that out. It's super simple actually to really understand what is that experience, what are they experiencing within that process, and what do you then want that to be. So first, map that out is what I would tell you, because sometimes you're surprised by, well, that's actually not something we're intentionally doing, but it's part of the experience. And when I think about a couple of those things that are just so critical, I would say it starts really early on, before they're a candidate. So what are those stories that folks are sharing? So when I think about the companies that are doing really well in this market, it's their brand and employment brand are one, and what are they really being intentional about sharing from an employee perspective? What does it look like to be a part of here? Why am I going to see 6 or 7 different touch points and finally be like, you know what, that message I got a few weeks ago, I think I'm going to click on that. Like, there's some interesting stuff going on there, and I've now seen 6 or 7 things that are interesting. It's usually not that first one that's going to be something that maybe is going to get that response, but it's, what does it look like day in the life? And, what is really unique to be a part of there? And what am I going to see that really resonates, that is important to me? One of the things actually, Ben, you and I talked about in our last conversation was realignment. So as folks talk about realignment, what's going to resonate for them that they're really looking for in that kind of next phase of their career, or kind of this next step? So I would say that's something that comes to mind. And when I talked about at the beginning, control what you can control, what is that time that each step takes? And you can tell yourself you want it to take a day, but you can look at when you're mapping that out and you find out that steps are taking 5 days, 6 days, and you're like, well, we're not controlling what we can control there. And what is the intentionality around how long each step should take, and who owns that? And what happens when that isn't happening, and how are you partnering with your leaders to show that data and to share, here's what's actually happening when we say we want it to, the full process to be done under 10 days or within a week or whatever that is. And then when you show the data back that it's 33 days or 27 days or whatever that might be, that's a huge point in where you can lose an amazing candidate that is just like, well, I have 5 other offers literally in this market.
Yes, that's one of the things we're seeing regularly in our candidate data. Again, that's been an update since last time you and I talked. We actually have some new information that we're sharing, and more candidates than ever are juggling multiple offers. Even for more entry level roles, there's so much demand that they have multiple things, and they're using some of those things you're talking about here, those controllables, how you present yourself as a company, and some of those kind of things. They're using those to sift and filter which company they want to pursue, which is both exciting because it's in your control, but also scary if some of you stop and take a moment and think, oh goodness, what message are we sending with some of those things we're putting out there? One of the things I want to touch on really quickly is you talked about sharing what a day in the life is like, representing your actual people out there for the world to see. One of the things that I was stunned by is I was curious, like, how strong is that measure? How much people really want to see that compared to talking to us, right? HR, recruiting. What we found in one of our research studies is that they want to see people who are in the job. They want to see things that are really specific, 10x what they want to hear from us. Okay, so we play the front and center role in most hiring processes, and yet they want to hear those other voices. They want to see that someone like them is already there, has already succeeded, or they're not going to be able to picture themselves in that role very well.
Yeah. Some things I'm starting to see is, again, quick videos, because folks want to see things kind of quickly, but videos of folks that are in the role. So even if your talent team is doing this sourcing and outreach or some of those types of things, what they're sending is the video of someone on the team of what are they excited to be working on right now? Why are they still a part of the team 5 years later? Or what has been really great about their career journey as part of this team? And what has that looked like? And what opportunities have they had not in even the same department? So where have they had an opportunity to move across the business and really learn across the organization? So if you can get those kind of videos from your team that you're reaching out about, that's an awesome opportunity to kind of give a quick highlight when you might be doing that outreach, because like you said, that's what they want to hear. And they need to hear it quickly because they have a lot of those different messages, or they're seeing a lot in their LinkedIn feed. So as quick as you can kind of get that message out there.
It's controllables. I keep coming back to that because I think that's just a powerful way of putting this, because right now it's very easy to say, well, look how few candidates there are, or look at this other thing. And those are things important to be aware of, right? I'm sure you're not going to let someone walk blindfolded into this and say, oh my gosh, I'm shocked by that. And yet if that's 90% of your focus, right, you're only going to have 10% left to actually put into those things you can control and impact and adjust and fix and tweak and experiment with, as you probably should be. One of the other things that you and I talked about before was kind of doing a process audit, using comp as a lever. Like, there's all these different things that we can talk about as part of this process. You talked about doing a process map a few minutes ago and trying to lay that out. Who should we be sharing that with? Who should we be talking about that with? Is it other leaders? Should we be showing that to senior leaders, especially right now when we're trying to say, hey, by the way, it took us this many candidates in the funnel to get this many hires. Now it's taking 3x that many candidates to get to maybe a hire if they say yes. That probably is going to require comp adjustments and other things. So what's your thought on that and kind of involving other stakeholders and bringing them along for this journey?
Absolutely. So if you do that process audit and you have 3 key recommendations from that you're putting forward, that's a great conversation to have with senior leadership. I do not know a leadership team that's not talking about recruitment in some form or fashion right now. So be a part of that conversation and give those recommendations from what you've gone through, going through that mapping, as well as process audit. I worked with a team, and it took us a day to really go through, okay, everything from I'm applying to your role and we're going to let you know tomorrow that I'm applying to that role and what happened in that process, to everything from what was the messaging, back, what happens, in each of those touch points in the process. And we're going to look through the past, month of candidates there, and we can pull, a lot of times you can pull some quick and easy reports. So some of this stuff, it's a reminder of, it's not a daunting kind of month-long project that is, going to be so tedious. You can make it be as long of a project as you need it to be, but it can be something that you can get the information usually pretty quickly. And putting together, again, pick 3 recommendations. I always say start somewhere, because I think what happens is then you find 20 things in there that you want to work on. And then a lot of times 20 things means let's do nothing because there's too many things. Yes. So pick a few key recommendations that are really going to move the needle. And I would say talent teams, you hear things on a regular basis too. So you have the data now in front of you, as well as you hear these conversations and why, you may not have the talent, you may be losing the talent in the process, and put together 3 key recommendations that are going to move the needle in that, and have that conversation with leadership. And if that's not the case in the given month, then start having it with leaders. And I would say start with a given department that has some of the biggest challenges, but maybe has leaders that are really involved and invested in the process, and start there. So I would say, again, control what you can control. If that's the team that's willing and open to have the conversation, start with them and then share their success.
One of our speakers last year, Trent Cotton, talked about that exact thing you just finished with. And he said, what we knew it was going to be hard to sell this new approach to recruiting. And so we actually went to a couple different areas where we were most pressed for talent. And we put this new thing in place, and we soon had people calling in like, hey, when's our turn? When's it going to be our turn to get those results, that impact, that candidate quality, because they start seeing the benefit that those other leaders have. This isn't just a people thing. This becomes a business thing if it's that pressing. And so they see the results they're having, and they want those same results for their teams too. That's incredible.
Absolutely. And they do see it, because they're like, I worked with a company and last year there was an area, engineering, so hard, had 15 openings and down to 0 openings. And everyone was like, what did you do? What happened? And it was like that partnership with them and the talent team, what they really owned and had direct deliverables and goals themselves, and what they changed within the process and checkpointed on that all throughout there, and were able to share back. It was really cool, because I think everyone was shocked at the fact of being able to say 0 open headcount. So
that's wild. A lot of people listening right now are thinking, man, that would be a dream. That'd be incredible.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so I want to ask you 47 more questions, but we do not have the time to do that today. So we'll have to circle back again at some point. But for everybody out there listening, I warned you all that you were going to enjoy hearing from Julie. I told you you would, so I know you have. If they want to follow you or learn more about what you're up to, what's the best way for them to follow you?
Yeah, they can go out to LinkedIn. I'm just Julie Barker, or Cultivate Talent. So either one is probably the best way. And I love to connect with folks and just hear from your experiences. That's how I learn regularly too, and really hear, what are some of your challenges? So reach out and directly message me. I would love to hear, questions, challenges, things that you're excited about. What's something that worked really well and you're super excited about, and let me celebrate with you. So reach out directly. Happy to connect anytime, and just glad to be a part of this with you all.
Wonderful. Thank you again for joining us. I appreciate you. And to all of you out there, thanks for all your comments and input during this session. I know it's been incredible, and stay tuned for more HR Summer School coming right up. Okay. Goodness gracious. George, I want to stop, sip it. What's your big takeaways, my friend?
Takeaways for the day. The last few sessions have been very great. I go back to thinking about the internal hiring and how Kelby shared a lot of the process of hiring internally. I really believe that internal hiring is an indication and a reflection of leadership. When you're growing your employees, investing in your employees, it's not for the benefit of the company, it's for the fulfillment of those employees that you have, to make sure that I feel like it is my duty, it is my responsibility, and then it's my privilege to impact those who are with me for as long as they're with me. Not with the mindset that I want to impact them and I want to invest in them because I want to see the harvest, but when they're with me for that short season, whether it's 2 months, 2 years, 2 decades, however long they're with me, I want to make sure that when they leave, they are better than what they started with. Not so I can pat myself on the back or get some award, but it's the fact that we must be able to reach the next. And so often, Ben, I think a lot of us fear this for a few reasons, but they don't want to be replaced. My mindset, as we kicked off beginning, my mindset is to replace myself. Every aspect of life is to really replace myself. Another thing that really stuck out is that you can have control, but you cannot have growth. When she was talking about the growth and thinking about Southwest and where they are now, it is impossible to try to control something, but also grow it. I got to be able to trust that person who's thinks differently than I do, that has a higher creativity and their mindset's different. You must invest and empower to grow. And then you talk about the importance, of people. And this is going back, and I thought a little bit more as we were talking about taking care of ourselves, right? And making sure that we're giving ourselves, that time to really meditate, to really, find ourselves. I think it is important for us to understand that we are not measured by how much we do, right? I'm giving everybody right now permission to say no. I'm giving everybody permission to understand that it's not about how much you do that matters. It is about what you do that matters, right? And so if I have 50,000 tasks, but I'm burnt out, and you have one task that is moving the heartbeat of our company, I think it's important that we understand your importance is not measured by how much you do, but how much of what you do that matters. And then my last and final, to recap and put all this together, Ben, is remembering to change our mindsets. Everything that I heard today is about, what we're doing, and we're spending time doing these different things. And I want to challenge everybody today to change your mindset on this. When I was younger, Ben, and especially early in my marriage, my relationship, we spent a lot of money, right? We spend money. As many of you know, I have a shoe problem, and I spent a lot of money on shoes. But the moment I realized, and we do this, we learn in life, Ben, the difference between spending money, and as we get older, we learn how to invest money. But one thing we never do as people is take care of our greatest resource that we have in life, right? If somebody robs me of everything I have financially, I'll work the next day and I'll earn a paycheck. Sure, it's not what I had before, but I can earn more money. What we do not do and do well enough, and my challenge to you today, is to learn, just like we did with money, spending money versus investing money, is that take care of our greatest resource, which is time. I no longer spend time at work. I no longer spend time with my employees. I no longer spend time with my family. I invest time with my family. I'm investing time at the workplace. I'm investing time with that person who's on my team. And when you do that, it changes your mentality and it changes really the atmosphere. So today I got to invest time at HR Summer School and learn some things. And so spending versus investing, it's a totally different mindset. And we invest our money, but we don't invest our time. And I believe today that's something that it was reminded to me. I need to learn to invest more time, taking care of myself and impacting others.
I love that. I'm thinking we'll spend money on a candy bar. We'll spend money on a, something small or frivolous. But when we say invest, it's a mindset shift to this thing is going to be more important tomorrow than it is today. It's already important, but it's going to be more important tomorrow. And so, like Shalu said, investing into relationships, right? There's all these different pieces to this conversation. I love your takeaways there. That's incredible. Yeah. All right. I have a couple quick final kind of announcements and takeaways and things before we wrap up for the day. I saw someone a minute ago post in the comments, like, I didn't know what to expect as a newbie here. And I'm kind of sad because the first day is over already. And so I think that sums up for most of us what this day has been like. So it's always a ton of fun, but it seems to go quickly. So we'll see you back here tomorrow. Again, same time. Tomorrow we're going to hear, I'll do some giveaways first before I talk about tomorrow. So really quickly, let's pop this back up. We're going to away some more of the books. So those of you on the left side here on the column are getting a Resiliency at Work book. So go ahead, email the email address there at the bottom. Rebecca will get you taken care of. I saw some people shouting out they're a freshman at the very beginning before we started today. So I grabbed some names of those people that said they're freshmen. So I hope you all enjoyed this first experience. And if you didn't, don't tell me, it's okay. But I know you enjoyed this. if you want to reach out, we'll get you a book as well. Just tell us you're a freshman. We'll do something extra special for you. Just a welcome to the family, to the community. We're so glad to have you. And it's going to be another incredible day. Someone asked if this is recorded. Yes, absolutely. The second we cut the feed, it will be available for replay on the Facebook, HR Summer School Facebook page, on the YouTube channel, or here on LinkedIn. Regardless of where you're watching it, that replay will be available immediately. What's fun too is as you're going through, if you comment and you tag someone else, the other people who have been in that conversation will also see that as well. So it's a way to keep the conversation going beyond that. Really quickly, another shout out. You all heard from Keith at UKG. He kicked us off today, got us lit that fire, I'll say, really got us going in the right direction. So as we're going through, we'll hear from some of these other companies and speakers and amazing supporters of the event. So thank every single company here that made that possible. And I think most of all, thank you to all of you for being here, for being active, for George said earlier, he needs a slow-mo button for the chat because it's going so quickly. There's so much good conversation. So I'm glad all of you are here. I thank you for what you're doing, for the impact you're having, for the people you're serving, and trying to do that really tough job of balancing the needs of the people and the business at the same time. It's not an easy one. And that's why I'm glad each one of you here at Summer School are doing that job, because it's not an easy one and you're the ones who are built for it. We're going to give you some more encouragement tomorrow, some more opportunities to learn and grow. The last thing I'll say is the UKG link. We'll post that again if you want to get in that giveaway. They're giving away Apple HomePod Minis, 3 of those. And so that link will expire. So you have to jump in there and do that. I'll make sure it goes in the comments again. Last thing is, if you got some good notes, some good takeaways. I saw Tamadia post earlier that she got some good ideas. She said, I was writing too many notes to actually comment in the chat. If you got good notes and takeaways today, please take a second, help your friends, help your peers in the community, post a review of the event. Here's the day one. Here's the big takeaways for me. Tag me, tag HR Summer School. We're going to go through and pick some of those people who are posting those recaps on a daily basis to get some other prizes and things like that as well. So much fun, such an opportunity and an honor to serve all of you in this way. George, I'm going to give you the final word before we wrap up. If you'd like to say anything else before we wrap up for the day and come back tomorrow.
Make sure you eat some vegetables, some fruits in the morning, get you some good cereal, prepare for your test. You never know. There's always going to be a test. I may have a test. Maybe we can have a test, Principal Bill, to start off tomorrow. But I'm just wanting to go to bed real quick, and I want to wake up and I get to invest in this again tomorrow.
That'll be a fun experience. That would be fun. We can't do that. I can't sleep that long. My kids won't let me, but we may end up having a surprise visit from one of the Eubanks children at some point during this event. I'll have to bring tomorrow and show the picture. My son is 7. He was doing a career day thing at school, and he's like, I want to do HR Summer School when I grow up and keep it in the family. This is his, unprovoked, his own words on that. And it made me smile so big. So thank you all again for what you do. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, George, my friend. I appreciate you, brother. And I'll catch you all tomorrow here on HR Summer School. Have a great rest of your day.